law enforcement and fire. Lord, thank you for their hard work and devotion each day, and we pray you watch care over them. And as always, we pray for our military personnel that's serving to protect our nation, that you would watch over them and their families. Now bless this meeting, bless each item on the agenda and the deliberation that it would take place. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Bradley. I'd like to ask Councilman Schlachter to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
It'll be an honor, Mayor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Carumba. Here. Councilman DeWitt.
Here.
Councilman Slackton.
Here.
Mayor Simmons.
Here.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Here.
Councilman Gibson.
Here.
Councilman Forbes.
Here.
Okay, great. Public comment at this time for agenda items. For
Okay,
agenda
Rick.
items only, please.
Rick Steinmeier. 6C, Lee Health Program. They said they have a $10 million bike path grant. I hope some of it goes to Bonita Springs. Where's that $10 million? You build a lot of bike paths for that. Maybe we can connect as parks together. I certainly would investigate that. This paddle board around Lover's Key, maybe the fire department could have their boat available in case somebody has a heart attack or something, rather than having to come out. Number E, 7E, you only have one bid. I don't know why we can't get all these bids in. They range in value. When we get bids, they're really all over the park, and I think there's so much money to be saved there by waiting until we get the bid we want. Now, does the city attorney have a teacher's license? I mean, we're putting up all these students. Doesn't she have anything better to do than put up with college kids? I wonder about this, so thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Anybody else from the public? Hello, Kathy.
Good morning, everybody. Kathy McGrath for the record, and I'm here to talk about item D on the consent agenda, and of course that's our third annual short film fest that's coming up. The gala will be November 3rd. The subject this year is the beaches of Bonita Springs. A lot of nice prizes. I want to assure everybody that there's no taxpayer money that goes into this. It's all sponsors. So I appreciate your support. It's a wonderful thing. We've learned something each year and made changes to make it even better. You know, the gala is at the Prado. It'll be November 3rd, so thank you much for your support. The other thing I want to let you know is any profit from this goes to the Bonita Springs Waterways Conservation Fund. Thank you.
Public comment? Good morning, welcome.
Hi, my name is Rachel Stewart, and I'm here to talk about item 14B, the capital improvement for the sidewalks. I have a petition that has been signed in favor of a sidewalk from Kentucky Street, the railroad track, all the way to Wisconsin Street. And I would also like to suggest a sidewalk on Wisconsin Street as well to connect all the walkways, as it is a very dangerous street, and I like to keep people safe because there's a lot of people that walk in that area. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Good morning.
Morning. I'm Brad Cornell, here on behalf of Audubon of the Western Everglades in Audubon, Florida, and I'm here to speak on the consent agenda item of a letter of support for a new Florida Forever project called Crew Headwaters. And this is a project that several folks in the community that support the Crew project have proposed to the state's Florida Forever program, and the Acquisition and Restoration Council up in Tallahassee is going to be voted on for the first time on June 17th. It's a 2,800-acre project. I had forwarded through your manager some backup information on this. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. The primary purpose for this project is to help mitigate the damage being done by pumping off of agricultural fields and citrus operations north of Crew and Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary. These are heavy flows that have a lot of pesticides and fertilizers that are impacting Crew and Corkscrew and exacerbate problems downstream. This is an opportunity to fix those problems and restore wetlands and habitat. It's a win-win for everybody in that area, and I encourage your support and thank you for your interest in this. And if you have any questions, I do have some other copies of the handouts. If you would like them, I can pass them out. I'll put them in the back if not.
Yeah, you can just hand them right over here to Audrey, please. Great. Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Good morning,
everyone, especially our new mayor and new council people. My name's Kevin Bear. I'm the president and the founder of the Bonita Blues Charitable Foundation and the Bonita Blues Festival. This is Robert Morrison, one of our newest board members. I know that we're on the docket today to be approved for the Bonita Blues Festival for March 10th and 11th, 2017. And with the help from the city of Bonita Springs over the years, as our co-sponsor, we've been able to donate over $130,000 to local charities. And thanks to last year's amazing turnout, that number is going to go up by a very substantial amount in June at our check presentation party. We have already received emails and phone calls from Germany, Norway, and all across the United States wanting to know when our dates are for next year so people can start planning their vacations to Bonita Springs. So we're obviously hoping that we can approve the festival for the second weekend in March next year, and maybe we can work on establishing that as a continuous weekend so that people will know each year that they can plan their trips down here to beautiful Southwest Florida and enjoy the weather and some pretty darn good music too.
Great.
So thank you, folks.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Anybody else from the public that'd like to speak at this time? Come on up. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm new to this, so we're residential homeowners, and we had a proposal for streets off of Paradise Road to be paved. And actually, the prior city council was in great detail had summarized the bid work being done. We do have a bid for that. And it's been, as far as I know, Carl Schwing, I talked to him recently. He said it's been tabled to the new board. And we're just wondering if that's ever going to transpire. We have a bad situation on that road. And really, as homeowners, there's no way for us to remediate that. Even if we put slag in there, it's we've got 10-ton vehicles coming through. When it rains, I have pictures. It's completely washed out. There is just no remediation for that situation that we have there, along with the standing water and Zika virus and, health concerns of other sorts. We were just wondering as homeowners whether that's going to be something that City Council will look at. I do have the proposed contract here, and it's already been proposed, and it was supposed to be done like a month ago. And so now we're still waiting. All the homeowners are together on this, and we have our monies, which 80% of the city was to pay for, and 20% of the homeowners were left with the balance. Okay. So I would really
If you could leave that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Anybody else from the public like to speak at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on to proclamations and presentations.
Do we have a mic?
Yeah.
His voice is loud.
That'll be fine. Come on up, Matt. There's another one here. Well, good morning, everybody. We have a proclamation here. Whereas public works service provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the effective operation of public works systems and programs such as water, sewer, streets and highways, public buildings, and solid waste collection, and whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on the facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public work officials, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially
influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform, and whereas this year's theme is Public Works, Always There, quote unquote, as we celebrate the hard work and dedication of the many public work professionals throughout the world. Now therefore I, Peter Simmons, Mayor of the City of Bonita Springs, do hereby proclaim May 15th, 2016 through May 21st, 2016 as National Public Works Week in the City of Bonita Springs, and call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Signed, Peter Simmons, Mayor. Say a few words, Matt?
I just want to say thank you. I have a very capable staff, and it wouldn't be possible without them, and I appreciate them every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much.
Bring them all down.
Yeah. Would you all like to please come up at this time?
Most of the gang.
Great, fantastic. Good morning, how are you? Good. Hello, 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 welcome. Great handshake there. Like a vice grip. Good morning, how are you? Hey, good morning, how are you? Nice to see you. Good morning. Hello. Hi, good morning. Come on. Good morning. How are you? Morning, guys. Hello. Wow, this is a great turnout. Well, good morning. This is a proclamation. Whereas in 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the calendar week in which it falls as National Police Week, and whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedication of members of the Lee County Sheriff's Office, and whereas some 60,000 assaults against law enforcement officials are reported each year in the United States, and whereas since the first recorded death in 1791, over 20,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and have been killed in the line of duty, including 8 fallen officers of the Lee County Sheriff's Office, and whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty will be honored during Police Week memorial services to be held on May 18th, 2016, and whereas May 15th is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families, now therefore I, Peter Simmons, Mayor, on behalf of the City Council and the City of Bonita Springs, do hereby proclaim May 15th through the 21st, 2016 as National Police Week, and publicly salute the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across the nation, and urge all citizens to recognize, honor, and support our law enforcement heroes. Thank you very, very much.
Yay!
Thank you. Is this on? Okay. On behalf of the Lee County Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Mike Scott, we are honored to accept this from the City of Bonita Springs. Gracefully that you recognize the and honor and remember the people that actually gave the ultimate prize in Lee County and the entire United States. Special thanks to the City, the Council, and the Mayor, and especially the community. Without their support, we wouldn't be standing here. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you. Thank you. that was very special. Thank you very, very much to our officers. Let's move on to item C, where we will listen to a presentation by representatives from Lee Memorial Hospital about Healthy Lee program, green sheet number 16-05-0135. We have with us today Robbie Robsdorf, who's the Health Lee chairman, and Sally Jackson, the system director. Welcome. Welcome good morning.
Good morning, and thank you so very much. It is a good morning, and we thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, for inviting us here to speak something that's very passionate to all of Lee County and each and every one of us, and that is Healthy Lee. For the last 10 years, there's been a steering committee, which consists of a group of community leaders that actually came forward and made a commitment under our Healthy Lee, because our Healthy Lee tagline is choose, commit, and change. Well, these community leaders under that chose to make a commitment on improving the health of all the residents of Lee County and the health care delivery system in our community. We have always had leaders from the Bonita community involved with Healthy Lee. And in red, you will see some of the highlighted names of the current Bonita Springs area leadership and members. I won't read them off to you. You can see who they are. And about half of these were involved from our original Community Health Visioning 2017 startup, and others have joined over the years. As you can see, your community has been well represented in planning, data collection, and implementation of the Healthy Lee initiatives over the years. This steering committee, when we first met, and it was called Community Health Visioning 2017 back in 2007, we said we got to have a vision. How are we going to do this? Well, the steering committee chose 7 priorities to focus on. And these were culled from not just our brains sitting in a room, they were culled from 1,000 household surveys, focus groups, and town hall meetings that all started back in 2007. Each of these goals has one or multiple champions who actually provide support and monitor the overall community activities, as well as guiding any major initiatives in our goaled areas so that we can keep on track. As I said, we have branded this under Healthy Lee because once we got our vision intact, once we went out, it resonated more with getting Lee County healthier, so hence the name of Healthy Lee. And we made the logo available for our community partners to use as they collaborate. And that word is the key. It's all about collaboration. That was our vision, is collaborating for community health. Everyone comes to the table from where they are and they find things that they want to work on. We then raise the bar together. It's no one single person doing it. Or we can fill in the gaps where we find them, and it's all, like I said, to improve our community health. We have won through Healthy Lee, which is not to be braggadocious about, but I think it just kind of gives it that reaffirmation of what we're doing. We've won numerous national awards. You're only county here with community leaders, and through the recognition for Healthy Lee. Last year alone, we were named the top initiative for population health improvement with the Gage Award, which was from the America's Essential Hospitals. Also, it was named the American Heart Association's Fit Friendly Award for Community Innovation. Our Bob James Behavioral Health Triage Center, which you'll hear came out of all of this, and that's primarily for homeless people with mental health or substance abuse needs. And that was recognized by Harvard University in the top 25 innovations in government for 2015. So something all of your community leaders can be very proud of. Well, each year we have made strides in a planned and deliberate way. And as I said, we started in 2007, spent 6 months with consultants and our community gathering data. More than 4,000 people within the Lee County community were involved in this with the input from outreach as we did all of our original research. We set the priorities, and for the first 4 years, we focused primarily on the behavioral health needs because that came out as the biggest void in our Lee County community. Then in 2011, you know, the whole community, the big perfect storm, the economic crash affected so many jobs and so many families. Well, we updated our data. We do it every 3 years. We updated with another survey and saw that we had to focus on healthy lifestyles. That is when we began to focus on health styles, obesity as the top indicator for community health. We engage the community, continue to do, to adopt healthy lifestyles. So that way it leads to a healthier body and it reduces the predispositions for other chronic diseases. We've all heard the research. Make healthier choices. That's where you have to be accountable. And those healthier habits will produce in better health. We've updated our data in 2011, and we also did it in 2014. We need that scorecard. We need to know that we're making a difference. We're also on schedule to do this again in 2016, 2017. It's an every 3-year process. So we hope to include more town hall meetings again as we mark the 10th anniversary coming up on that 2017. I mentioned earlier on the timeline that we had focused the first 4 years on behavioral health. And one of the most unique new initiatives that came out of this, through the collaboration of the entire community, was the Bob Jane Center. And as I said, it has been recognized not just locally, but at a state level and a national level as a best practice. Our local law enforcement got engaged. They can take those who otherwise would be placed right in the jail for a nuisance misdemeanor. Instead now, they take them to the center where they have an assessment. They can accept to participate in a 60-day program. They can take a referral to other services, housing, or whatever might be needed. Results have produced and includes a 46% reduction in jail time for these low-level offenses, and about half of the clients taking some type of referral to get back on track to contribute to their own lives and to our society. We have many other initiatives that have resulted in new investment into Lee County, both public and private investment, government and private sector, individual and corporate donations as well has come forward. From 2007 to 2011, we created 322 new behavioral health beds in this community. Is that enough? Absolutely not, but that's certainly better than where we were, where we started. Florida, sadly, still ranks 48th or worse in funding for behavioral health, and our region is the lowest funded in the state, and it's about half of what the highest funded region receives. So advocacy efforts continue. We really focus on that as well. Every time somebody makes a trip to Tallahassee, we say, talk about behavioral health. We need better funding here. This is our stated, as you'll bring up, our stated goal for healthy lifestyles. I won't take your time to read it. It's in your package. But we are all working to build a culture of health in Lee County. Our coalition of grassroots organizations has pursued the healthy lifestyle goal. They've all come together. We have what is called a Healthy Lee Coalition in addition to the Healthy Lee Steering, and that coalition meets quarterly and involves more than 300 organizations focused on engaging the community to create that culture of health, nutrition, physical activity, built environment that is safe and open to pedestrians and cyclists, and public policies that encourage healthy lifestyles and healthy people. We support Complete Streets, and we certainly support Lee County's sustainability plan. That coalition meets quarterly. If you're interested, it's July 26th, 7:30 to 9 is their next meeting at the Cape Coral Hospital, and new members are always welcome to become involved. We've encouraged our schools and our neighborhoods to build community gardens, and they have done so with a lot of enthusiasm. I know you see a lot in the paper, and it's really good for the kids today. Some of the major activities that we've done through the Healthy Lee initiatives, and I won't go into detail on them because they're part of your package, and in the back of the room we have a history that defines those for our audience as well. But we have the 5210, which is in schools and pediatricians' offices. They came forward and they treat it now. Every time a family takes a child to their pediatrician, they give it to them like it's a prescription. The 5210 is to eat 5 fruits or vegetables daily. Try and use no more than 2 hours of leisure screen time daily, 1 hour of physical activity, and 0 sugary beverages daily. That's the 5210 that you might hear about. Well, we now feel it's important through the health department with Angela is getting this out to the community, not just in the pediatrician's office, to engage everybody in our community to go online and take the 5210 pledge to trickle it down to the families. So that's beginning to work. We also have a program, it's called It's All About You, which is a chronic disease self-management. This was a best practice that we took from Stanford University. It's actually offered at the Lee Memorial Health Center's Systems Healthy Life Center right here at Coconut Point. Plus, it's for community centers, golf clubs, etc. United Way House partnerships for healthy services at all locations, including the Bonita location. We have the We Care partnership with community physicians. Now, this is something awesome that has come out of our Healthy Lee initiatives. This is for eligible free care for uninsured adults facing a life-altering condition. We now have more than 400 Lee County physicians that enrolled in this, giving free care, and actually last year provided more than $7 million in care. Is that awesome? So thank your physician if they've stepped forward and done something. This was non-existent in Lee County when Healthy Lee started. We also have the Harry Chapin Food Bank that we've engaged to work with, got collaborative efforts going to help support them, and vice versa. They went from, in 2007, from 50,000 pounds of fresh produce to now more than 7 million pounds last year. And that's just good nutrition for everyone because we feel that that's key. We've reached out to a lot of producers, farmers, to give their excess over to them, so it's that collaborative effort again. Lee County did receive the very competitive Tiger Grant for $10 million from the U.S. Department of Transportation for bike paths, sidewalks, and safer intersections connecting our Lee County recreation areas. All of this active support of Healthy Lee and our community partners, most of which sit on the steering committee to lead that, to make a difference, to make the connections, or the coalition, that is what has made all this happen. I may be a spokesperson, and Sally right here is my right hand to keep it coordinated, but it's everyone in this community. We have specifically for businesses because we feel if you can get the business, you're dealing with their employees, et cetera, and it trickles down. We've engaged them when we challenged the Horizon Council. Some of you may remember that. We challenged the Horizon Council to be a part of Healthy Lee from the very beginning through their Healthy Challenge, and boy, was that a wake-up call for a lot of our leaders. They thought their body looked good on the outside but didn't have a clue what was going on the inside, and then they found out their biological age might not be the same as their real age, so it got everybody on track, which is good. We all know economic development is quality of life. If we have a healthy Lee County, that's going to be good for our overall economic development. So the Horizon Council didn't stop there. They formed their own healthcare task force. They continue to meet monthly. They have a business agenda specifically for workplace wellness. And that engages the CEOs, engages everyone. They develop best practices. We have brochures for that. It's out on the website, which we're leaving you with, our www.healthylee.com. They've had 2 summits with both national speakers and local case studies for best practices. Now they actually award for workplace wellness a small, mid-sized business and large business to recognize what they're doing to get more businesses engaged. So we're very, very appreciative of the business community and the Horizon Council leadership for continuing that. As I said, we started from a base of research and unique Lee County data, and we get input from the community and we set goals. We have a scorecard. We tie our 7 priorities each year to that scorecard. As I said, we reach out to a PRC survey, which Sally will give you a little bit of data on, because we want the professionals that go out and really do these surveys, because we want to know where we stand so we can make improvement. I'm just going to tell you some of the results that has come out of this from our last report, and we hope that it's going to be even better at this next report. There's 15% less adults are obese in Lee County since we started this in 2007. 34.5% less children are obese. The schools have taken all the fryers out. They're focused on nutritional meals. We know kids complain about it a lot, but it's making a difference. There's 25% less residents that do not have any leisure time activity when that survey was taken. You got more out doing things. 22.5% more residents meet physical activity recommendations. So, some measurable bottom line results, and so important to all of us. 29% less heart disease related deaths in Lee County. That is awesome, something to be very proud of. That percentage actually exceeds a major tracking goal out there. It's called Healthy People 2020 goal. We're beating that. 29% less stroke-related deaths in Lee County. We're exceeding the Healthy People 2020 goal on that as well. We know that a lot of people, when we go out and speak, just like at the summit we recently did, say, well, isn't Blue Zones doing this? How's Blue Zones? And we're happy, you know, anytime there's a health initiative, a better health, we think that's important. We've sat down and compared and spoken with them, and we feel that the similarity, the key similarity of the Blue Zones is to our healthy lifestyles priority and that goal. But we do so many other things, as you've heard today. You know, you'll see on there that they focus on work sites. Well, that's our steering committee of business leaders, our Horizon Council, et cetera. Schools, our Lee County School District sits at the table and at the executive committee meetings. They've removed the fryers. They have fruit and snacks now, mobile learning labs, the teaching gardens. There's the Healthy Me that we've got going on about the mental health for children. Restaurants, as you know, we've really partnered up with the Heart Association, and I'm very proud to say Florida Gulf Coast University, as you know, just went smoke-free, so everybody's catching on to that. Community policy, the complete streets, start walking paths. So there's a lot of similarities when we look at their goals, what we're doing in comparison to where they are. So bottom line then, they have their Blue Zones Power 9, and we kind of put out their checklist compared to what we're doing. So the thing that we feel so happy about with Healthy Lee is the Blue Zones is a national thing, and it's funded nationally. This is all from the bottom up, where our community's gotten engaged. We know our needs, we know our community, and everyone's getting involved, which is something to be very proud of to make a difference. And we think healthy lifestyle should just be a normal daily routine in everything that you do, and not really have to follow a checklist. If checklist works for people, that's great. We don't want to disengage anything that they're doing, but we feel getting everyone engaged in Healthy Lee, you can see the difference that you make. So Sally is going to come up. We're going to leave you with some important websites that you can refer to and reference, but she's got just a little bit of our PRC data, because I know you're interested in what's happening right here in the city of Bonita Springs, and she's got that data carved out for you. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Robbie.
Thank
you very much. Sally.
If I can do that from my seat,
Yes.
I will just share with you a short explanation of the materials you've been provided. We do the survey every 3 years, as Robbie indicated, and we've given you the version of the survey that focuses on this area of Lee County with Bonita Springs in the center. So if you have the document, you will see on page 15 sort of a summary that shows opportunities for improvement in health in this immediate area. And I will highlight some of those. It includes the prevalence of heart disease, which in this area is double the U.S. rate, and also high cholesterol at 39% of the population here, it's 9 points higher than the U.S. average of 30%, and it's triple the Healthy People 2020 goal of 13%. And there's also a high rate of pre-diabetes here. It's the highest pre-diabetes rate in all of Lee County, if you look at the 4 different quartiles of the county, which we do, and it's double the U.S. rate. So those are indications of lifestyle choices in many instances, and so we continue to focus on improved nutrition, improved physical activity as goals, and they're goals for our entire community, and they're goals that can be taken to heart here. If you turn to page 16, the next page, you can see all 4 components of the map as we divide up our market areas. And the chart that begins on the following page is very colorful, and it shows all of the basic data, and you will find this region as market area 4 on that chart. So every place you see a sun, you're exceeding the goals, you're exceeding the averages in this market, and generally our market 4, which is this Bonita area, is in the top health conditions throughout all of Lee County. That is the generality. But there are also some negatives, and the negatives show up as a storm cloud. Those are the biggest opportunities for opportunity. So while you have overall good health, better than the rest of the nation, better than the rest of Lee County, you should look for the areas where there are opportunities for improvement. For example, while our overall cancer deaths are lower than the U.S. and the rest of the state of Florida, skin cancer rates are higher. And we do have wonderful year-round opportunities to be outdoors, and we all take advantage of that, but we have to be cautious. Our incidence here in this market is worse than the rest of Lee County. It's double the rate for the rest of Florida and double the national rate as well. So another opportunity for protection and improvement. And if you look at the section that refers to modifiable health risks in the back, all the data in the back gives you more detailed information, understanding what these variables are. But if you look at modifiable health risks, you will find, for example, that this market has only about 16% of the population who are obese, which is 50% lower than the Healthy People 2020 target, so you're doing very, very well there. But when you look at the overall combined overweight and obese, you're just like the rest of the country. About 2/3 of the people are overweight or obese, and we want to see that reduced. The findings from all of our major science in research, from American Cancer Society, the American Heart Association, American Stroke Association, has become more and more clear over the last couple of years. They are using the figure of 80% of heart disease, stroke, cancer are preventable, not just reducing the deaths, but preventing the disease through healthy lifestyle. And that margin of improving your indicators is very closely tied to a healthy weight. And so we want more and more of our residents to understand that and make the choice informed. There are things that we can do that help us to live longer and healthier. So we thank you for the opportunity to share this data with you. We have provided you as well a History of Healthy Lee, which is a summary of Robbie's report that she gave to you. And we've also given you our latest flyer, which focuses on the 5210 campaign she mentioned. Over the summer months, starting right now, we're doing a 5210 pledge for the entire community, for adults as well as children, to adopt these healthy lifestyle habits, focus on one each month for the 4 months starting in May, and we will have additional materials available. If you take the pledge on the Healthy Lee website, you'll have access to tips, recipes, and all kinds of opportunities to stay healthy this summer. So we thank you for the chance to share with you, and you can get additional information by contacting either Robbie or us anytime, and Carl Schwing has our contact information. So
Great.
we thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Council, any questions or comments? Or
Obvious
Should we all take the
presentation.
pledge?
Wonderful. I have taken the pledge, actually. Thank you very much. Great, thank you so much. Okay, we're going to now move on to a presentation by Tool Design Group on the Bonita Beach Road Visioning Study. And we have Arlene.
Oh,
You don't
good
look
morning.
like Ian, but hello.
Good morning, Council. I'm Arlene Hunter, Assistant City Manager. We're happy to have Tool Design Group here and Ian Lockwood, who is actually fresh off a plane from Australia. He was the only North American traffic engineer selected to do some studies for some Australian cities. He is going to go over the complete overview of the project, but we've also asked him to spend a little bit more time on the quadrant section that we're looking at examining further. We have had several conference calls with McMahon and Associates and Ian as well to implement the project that's underway with the quadrant study. So at the end, we'll have some further steps. Staff will have some recommendations to council for some further steps on the project. And with that, I'll have Ian Lockwood come forward.
Great, thank you. Ian, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Congratulations on the election, by the way. I could not have asked for a better segue to our discussions today, thanks to Healthy Lee. Our project that we worked on with you and your community over the last several months is all about walkability and cycling, giving people the option. One of the big things about getting folks to walk more and be active is to reduce the barriers to walking and cycling. And Bonita Springs Road is one of the most important east-west streets you have, and it connects your communities to lots of jobs and lots of shops, the beach. A lot of neighborhoods can connect through that street. So making it more walkable and bikeable will be huge for your health outcomes. I'll just wait for my presentation to show up, and then I'll go through it.
Have some technical difficulties here. Okay.
Also, is there a portable mic? Because it might be easier
Yes.
if
Yes.
Well, if everybody in the room wants to gather around my laptop, I can show it there. Great, thank you. I first want to thank the staff for organizing all the meetings we had over the last couple of months. Those were great, and the community for coming out and giving us a lot of input. Our initial ideas and what came out were a little bit different thanks to all the input, and I think it got better every time we met. On the team, there was myself, Cindy and Ken, Greg Desario from David Jones and Associates helped with the landscape architecture. One of the things that we wanted to ensure was that our plans could get built, and they're probably the best firm to help ensure that, and it was great to have them on the team. And then Tara Salameri, she's with Plan Active Studios. She is providing a perspective about getting the regulations in line with the physical planning as well, and she'll be, both Greg and Tara will be chiming in during the presentation. We're a tool design group, and we build beautiful active streets, and we're very, very happy with what we all came up with over the last few months. The corridor is about 7.5 miles. It starts out east in the communities and comes all the way to the beaches, passing all sorts of contexts along the way. We had the overarching idea was to create a vision for the corridor. We spent most of our time working on the tricky parts, and we'll go over those in detail. We wanted to also advance the land use planning aspect of it, because every time we do a street design, there's a land use response, and we want that to be positive and contributing to the place. And we want predictability. We want people to feel confident about the corridor and its future, particularly the development community. Oh boy, the format changed. These are all the different public meetings that we had. There's about 7 opportunities for people to come in and meet with the design team and work on the project together. So what we saw was a very busy, fast road. We call it a bit of a one-liner. It's mostly about motor vehicle traffic, and what we'd like to do is make it into more multifaceted road that can accommodate different user groups and give people choices on how to get around. There are folks who are walking now and cycling. We just want to make it easier for more people to do that, and we want to make the street more comfortable, and we also want to make it safer for people. We had lots of people join us, and during the first several meetings, we asked people what their values were, what they wanted to see changed, what they liked about the area, what they didn't like, and would like to see built that's missing. So we kind of summarized these in these word slides, and these are people's values. They're very interested in walking and safety. Aesthetics was hugely important. Comfort for using the corridor. People want to bike. The idea of the gateway to the Gulf was very important to folks. They want access to restaurants. They want access to the beach. This is what's not so good. There's not a lot of parallel roads. There's a lack of landscaping in different places. Folks would like to see a better identity in the corridor. So all of these things were addressed during the work. And this is what's important for folks: beauty, slower speeds, increased aesthetics, destinations along the corridor, make it comfortable, increase the identity of the city. This was a big theme that came through. Nobody wanted the car carrying capacity reduced along the corridor. So we have not reduced the car carrying capacity along the corridor. In fact, in a lot of places it'll be increased. But what will change is the behaviors and the inclusiveness of the street. So that was a big concern of folks, and it was adopted. This was kind of the theme of the whole exercise, was we want Bonita Springs to be a place and not just somewhere where people just drive through quickly. And that theme kind of transcended the entire work, and you'll see it in the plans that's what we'll be delivering. There's 3 types of safety that we concerned ourselves with in the corridor. One was to reduce the number of crashes, injuries, deaths, that kind of thing, make the street safer. And then the comfort or the feeling of safety. A lot of people don't use the street today because they feel like it's unsafe. They don't know what the statistics are, but they don't feel like their kids can ride their bikes, or that they can ride their bikes to a store, or that they can walk safely across the street. So what we're trying to do with the design is make it comfortable for people to use. And then from a liability perspective, we want the staff to actually be able to build the project. So what we're using is best practices for all of the design ideas so that folks can build the street with confidence. So some of the key strategies are slower and steadier speeds, making the street more beautiful with a sense of enclosure. The Healthy Lee folks talked earlier about complete streets. That's what this is about, in places, a road diet, shrinking the lanes so they're less highway-like and more city-like. Creating a connected street network so folks can get to and from their neighborhoods more directly, and a multimodal complete street so you can actually bike and walk. This is some of the educational material that we used during the workshops about complete streets. So we still want the corridor to work for the trucks, the cars, but we also want it to work for the more vulnerable users of the street, the people walking, biking, and also to help nurture the businesses, make it a nice address to live on, and connect it recreationally. There are some opportunities from roundabouts in the corridor. So we did some work on roundabouts. Just from an educational perspective, roundabouts are different than traffic circles that you'll see in Washington, D.C. and New Jersey. Those are rather dangerous. Roundabouts are actually quite safe, and they're also a little bit different than mini traffic circles. That is a traffic circle. We're actually replacing this one in New Jersey. This is a roundabout down here. That's the kind of thing we're thinking about. And then this is a traffic signal, and there's lots of different ways of crashing at a traffic signal. There's, 32 ways for vehicles to crash into each other and 24 ways for vehicles to hit pedestrians. With roundabouts, there's far less conflict points, so that's one of the big reasons why there's about 50% fewer crashes at roundabouts and about 80 to 90% fewer deaths and injuries. So roundabouts are far safer than signals. And in some of the locations along the corridor, they will help folks get through in their cars with less time, and it'll also help pedestrians cross the street. So that it's actually very easy to walk across the street with a roundabout. You can ride your bicycles through them. So it's very compatible with the bike changes that we're going to be recommending. And they handle all the big vehicles, the deliveries, the buses, the school buses, fire trucks, all those sorts of larger vehicles can get through readily. This is up in Bradenton, and the idea here was that it was difficult to cross the street. When the roundabout went in, it was actually easy to cross the street, made the beach more accessible, and it's much more vibrant today because of the changes. This is down in the Miami area. This used to be a signalized intersection with lots of challenges. With the roundabout, it's cleaned it all up and allowed the area to meet its potential. This is down in San Diego. This was a 5-lane arterial corridor that was narrowed down to 2 lanes. The 5 lanes were needed for the signals to process the traffic. With the roundabouts, because they're so much more efficient, it could handle the same traffic but in 2 lanes. And they used the surplus space for community functions like wide sidewalks, on-street parking, bike facilities, and it created a bit of a renaissance of the area. And now kids can actually cross the street before their parents wouldn't let them. This is in Colorado, and this is a very busy arterial, and you can see that it's run with roundabouts. And the idea here is that you can actually use roundabouts in series. They work very well. Keeps the traffic flowing nice and steadily, and allows the street to be permeable for pedestrians and cyclists. Sometimes, though, the streets are too busy for roundabouts. There's a couple of places along Bonita Beach Road that they're infeasible, so they're not being used there. And sometimes they don't fit. So we only use them where the traffic volumes allow them to be used, and we only use them where they fit. There's lots and lots of advantages. They keep the traffic moving. They're inclusive. They're beautiful. Aesthetics was a big thing. So you can actually design them to be very handsome. You can use them to be places for art. They reduce the asphalt surfaces, so there's less storm runoff. They make great entry features. So there's a lot of advantages to the roundabouts. The most difficult intersection in the corridor is at 41. I think we have a consensus on that. So here's an aerial. Down at the bottom is where the beaches are, and up at the top right is out, heading out towards the east. And this is the Publix area. Does everybody, are we all oriented? Mm-hmm. And that's 41. And there's the intersection, and the most difficult movement, which causes the most problems at the intersection, is the west to east left turns that want to go north. There's a double left turn lane right there, and for those of you who use that piece of the road, particularly during the peak hours, the queues back up right past the Publix and exhaust the capacity of the left turn lanes and actually go into the through lane, effectively making Bonita Beach Road one lane. Have anybody experienced that? Yeah, a lot of you. Okay. So that's the toughest movement in the whole corridor. The way the signals are timed, there's a cycle length of 180 seconds. So when you get a green light, to the next time you get the same green light, it takes 180 seconds. So it's a long cycle length because it's a really big intersection. And those two left turn lanes, they get about 34 seconds. So what's that? About 20% of the green time is allocated for that movement. 80% of the time, it's stopped. So you've got to, if you add the 34 seconds for both of these, you get effectively 68 seconds of, being able to turn left. And it gets filled. And this is a chart showing queuing. And as the capacity approaches 100%, as you fill it up, the queues grow towards infinity. They don't actually reach infinity, but for some of you it feels like that. But it gets close. So the delays are very long and the queues are very long. So the biggest idea to help with this intersection involves the northwest quadrant. And if we could connect the northwest quadrant and provide a third left turn lane, it has an enormous benefit to Bonita Beach Road. So if we duplicated the signal timing at the third left turn lane, and we'd get literally another 34 seconds. So it increased the ability to turn left by 50%. So anything we could do on Bonita Springs or Bonita Beach Road pales in comparison to just this little piece of network. That would be the single most important thing you could probably do for the entire corridor in terms of car carrying capacity. So what that does is it drastically reduces the queuing lengths and the delays. But what will probably happen is that the people who now avoid the area, because we met with lots of people who said, I don't go there because of the queuing. Some of those people will come back because it will breathe better. And so even if a lot of people did come back, the queues would be reduced and the delays would be reduced. So the other interesting thing about this signal is that, for those of you familiar with it, while you're turning left, at one point when that's happening, the through movement starts. So you have what's called a shared through and left going on, and that lasts for 84 seconds. So what that means is that the traffic going up and down 41 is actually stopped during the entire 84 seconds to allow Bonita Beach Road to move. So that, while it's stopped, that means we have up to 84 seconds that we can also stop here at our new left turn lane if we feel like it. So we could actually increase this 34 seconds for even longer if we wanted to, which would further relieve the left turns on Bonita Beach Road. So there's a lot of opportunity, but the whole secret to it, of course, is this little piece of network. So of all the things we could do, that would be the top one in my book. And this is the area around the intersection today. This is what we call an X-ray of the bones. So we drew some of the key streets that are around the intersection with 41, and we drew potential connections. And though it's not strictly part of our vision, it supports the vision because our vision can't really happen unless we have some relief to that intersection. So now McMahon has been working at more detail on those connections, and all four quadrants are important. The northwest one is the most important, but every one of these quadrants, if we can make those connections, would have similar benefits as we just discussed. So this is an excerpt out of McMahon's work, and they're looking at all those same connections. They did a little X-ray as well of the area, and here's some of their work plan. The key is preservation of the rights-of-way. We've noticed in our work that a lot of the rights-of-way get precluded through various reasons, but if you can do anything, don't preclude these connections, even if you don't make them, but don't preclude them for the future. So there's the intersection again. So here's their work. So they have ideas for the northeast part of the quadrant. They're very similar to our ideas. Again, the northwest, which is probably the most important one, their ideas mirror ours nicely. So there's a lot of good overlap between the two efforts. This is the southwest quadrant, again, very similar to what we came up with, and the southeast, very similar. So take a look at, they're going into more detail than we did, so take a good look at what they've done, and do your best as a community to try and preserve those corridors, because it will really, really help you in the long run. We also looked regionally at connections. There aren't many that are still available because they've been precluded by development or land sales and that kind of thing. We came up with a couple. One of the more important ones is to keep Old 41 continuing parallel with Tamiami Trail. Right now, they kind of come together, and if you could keep them apart, so you have parallel network, that way people can get directly to downtown and places, the neighborhoods downtown, without having to participate in the intersection with 41 and Bonita Beach Road. The other key corridor was down Veterans Memorial Parkway. We've learned since that that the part on the east end has been precluded because of some land sales and some development that occurred in the potential right-of-way. So the only available part in Collier County now is to connect parts of this Memorial Boulevard with Old 41 and maybe all the way to 41. So we would highly recommend that no more of that right-of-way be sold or otherwise given away, because it provides some parallel route for drivers to take, so they don't have to use Bonita Beach Road. Here are the number of lanes up and down the corridor. It ranges from to 6. Mostly it's a 4-lane road, though. And here are some of the key kind of what we call kind of nodes, character areas. Down here by the beach, there's the parking lots and the beach activities. And then there's a large commercial area around 41, and then a potential kind of extension of your downtown at Old 41. Now, I did say that we were not reducing the car carrying capacity of the corridor. There's a small section here where Old 41 comes out, where we're suggesting it goes from 6 to 4 lanes on the corridor. But in a second, you'll see that we're recommending other network, which though it looks like 4 lanes, there'll actually be 8 there because of the parallel network. So the car carrying capacity will actually be going up significantly in the area, but just not on the corridor itself. So here's a blow-up of the Old 41 area. And this is the network that we're recommending to go into that area. I think everybody appreciates that this area will develop over time, and we suggest that it develop in a connected, walkable way. And so some of the key features are the roundabouts, and there's actually 5 of them. There's 3 on Bonita Beach Road and 3 on Old 41. And you'll notice that what we've done here is we're trying to prevent what is happening right now on New 41 by providing routes in the different 4 quadrants to get around. Everyone isn't stuck going through the one big intersection. If we don't plan a network, we're going to have the same problems here as we have at 41. So this network allows you, for example, if you're going up Old 41 and you want to go east, there's lots of different ways to go east without having to use that single intersection, which allows the area to breathe from a traffic perspective. If you're going downtown, let's say you come off 75 and you want to go downtown, you don't have to use this one intersection. There's different ways of accessing the downtown. We're suggesting connecting industrial together so that the same benefits can happen if you're coming from the beach into that area. So this would create a very walkable, accessible extension of your downtown. It'll create a really nice address for your downtown to pull people in into your downtown. It's also got a layer of connected open space. You'll see that there's some thought put into where your trails and so forth would go. There's the main trail bike route up and down Bonita Beach Road, but then there's ways to connect the community to the various land uses in this new development, and also taking advantage of this beautiful creek, so you can use that on your way downtown. If you look closely, you'll notice that there's some kind of red bars on some of the streets. Those are where we suggest the building's front. These are what we call the A streets. These are the streets that we think should be the most walkable. And the B streets are all the other streets which don't have those red bars. And on the B streets, that's where you would access parking lots, access servicing, all the back-of-house activities, so that you can get this really nice framework of highly walkable, accessible streets. And then just zooming in on the road itself, you could have a very handsome series of roundabouts, creating great entrance features into the developments on the sides and into downtown. So this would be very safe. It would be very beautiful. It would allow cars to get up and down the corridor without having to spend a lot of time at red lights. And it would allow pedestrians to cross the street safely and comfortably north and south. So here are these kind of character areas along the corridor. There's the beach zone. There's the couple of commercial areas. The historic zone at the end of the downtown. There's some commercial areas along the way. This is the area we call the interstate zone, and then past the interstate, there's what we call the community zone. And each one of these areas has different needs in terms of the design. So this sort of map informs the design of the street itself and also how the land uses will respond, and Tara will actually go into that in a little more detail later. And the landscape also along those corridors needs to reflect their character. I'm going to ask Greg to go into to some of the details about the landscape.
One of the things we heard in all the meetings with the public and everybody is they wanted a comfortable, walkable, bikeable area, and to provide that we need to develop some plant palettes that can be used throughout the corridor to develop shade and provide that comfort. What put together here is a basic plant palette that can be used throughout the corridor, using a combination of native and non-native species that would work very well. The amount of them and the predominance of them would vary as you went through different zones, but this would allow a nice diversity of mixture of plant material and opportunities. The interstate zone, we have the opportunity to use some more what we call bold landscaping or the predominant palm species such as the Sylvesters and Royals and other ones to really identify the interchange as a gateway to the community. And there's also opportunity there where we have some land available in the cloverleaf to use some of our large flowering trees that you normally don't get a chance to use too often because of the limited space available on some properties. So these are, again, just a starting point. We're working with staff to come up with a mixture of materials that can be used. Commercial zone, we start getting a little bit more urban friendly, smaller species, a little tighter groupings, and again, a mixture that would work well with in a commercial zone where you're really concerned more with visibilities and access to commercial lots. Again, given the diversity of color, size, texture, providing shade in some tight areas, that, so listed there. Again, going through the different historic zones, you'll see a lot of the same species being used, but depending on the physical layout of the roadway and pathways, we would do a mixture of different ones, and one would take more precedent over the other one. Again, gumbo limbos and buttonwoods are nice natives that fit well in the urban environment, as well as some of the palm species here. And then as we start getting toward the beach zone, we have an opportunity to use some more of the subtropical and tropical hardwoods that you don't get to see too often, such as wild lime, sea grape, thatch palms, Jamaica dogwoods. Something that there's very few places in Florida that get the opportunity to use these, so we would like to introduce these throughout as well as we get, and they also help identify more of a beachy theme and beach zone that the community is looking for.
Thank you, Greg. So the best practices for a bike route down a street this big is to use separated bike facilities. And it's literally exclusive space for the bikes along the side. And we chose the south side for the route because there's fewer driveway interruptions. And that's the way you actually access the beach when you get to the end as well. The safety benefits of the separated bike facilities are very impressive. The country that kind of pioneered this for the world is the Netherlands, and they did it because of the poor safety record they used to have there. And by the introduction of the separated bike facilities, they've increased their safety tremendously. So this is a contrast between what it's like to ride your bike here and what it's like to ride your bike in the Netherlands. And a lot more people get injured and killed in the United States while riding per million kilometers or million miles traveled. So what we'd like to do is make it a lot safer here and a lot more comfortable to ride your bike. There's different types of cyclists. There's the sort of very confident folks who will ride in just about any conditions. There's the somewhat confident folks who will ride on normal bike lanes that you see out there today. But then there's the vast majority of the population who aren't comfortable on those sorts of bike facilities that would be very comfortable on separated bike lanes. And so that's the population that we're aiming for, so that most people in the community would be willing to ride. And then there's about 30% of the folks who would never ride, but yeah, maybe after they'll change their minds. But the idea is that we can make the bike environment appealing to most people. So here's the home run. If we can make cycling safe for the more vulnerable of the road users. The separated bike facilities are preferred for ladies, elderly folks, and young people. So there's huge benefits from a safety perspective, and from a comfort perspective, and from a connections perspective. And one of the things that we noticed here when we looked at the bike plan, that there's this big gap on Bonita Beach Road. There's lots of cycling facilities that bring you to Bonita Beach, but this would actually complete the network so that you could get to shops, stores, the beach, other neighborhoods, downtown, all the sorts of important things that the road connects to. And there's all sorts of different ways of designing these, and I think we've got a pretty good design conceived for the corridor. This is what it looks like through an intersection, and it's very conspicuous. We want motorists to be able to tell that there's cyclists crossing the street. So this is the national standard for crossing. The area is raised up, and it's got some nice markings on it so that everybody knows there's cyclists crossing the street there. And that's the safest way for cyclists to cross the street. And this is what it would look like at a driveway. It's very similar treatment. This is what the bike facilities would look like in the old 41 area once the downtown development sort of creates an address on Bonita Beach Road. So you have the nice wide sidewalks, and then you have a little landscape buffer, and then you have the bike lanes, and then you eventually get to on-street parking on the street. So working our way from the east to the west, out towards the communities, we've got a separated 4-lane road with a very large median. What we're suggesting out here is not touching the road per se, but adding the bike facilities on the south side. So it would be a fairly affordable addition to the street. There are places where there is there's ditches and so forth for the stormwater, and there are places where we might need a small retaining wall to accommodate the bikeway and the walkway. But a very nice way to allow those folks to ride up to the interstate, past the interstate, into downtown. We would suggest some trees also to make it nice and shady and comfortable during the hotter weather. I'm going to let Greg talk about the interchange because he had some really cool ideas about the interchange and actually funding for it.
Again, one of the things that we heard was we want to create a gateway to the community. We needed to be a place to be and not just a place to pass through. We have great opportunity here with the interchange of I-75 and Bonita. FDOT uses what they call bold landscape initiatives to develop these gateways. You may have seen them as you traveled up and down 75. the intersection of I-75 and 4 and many other communities. They are looking and they are trying to get these kind of gateways put in South Florida here. Bonita Beach Road is a prime candidate for something like that, given the access to the only access from the interstate for the community itself, to develop a strong gateway approach using bold landscaping such as Sylvester palms or large clusters of royals and other palms that can be incorporated. Also including some of the more native hardwoods and canopy trees to blend with some of the existing native vegetation that's out there, and then transition to either the residential portions to the east or more of the commercial portions to the west. But this is, again, a good, excellent candidate for a bold initiative and a true gateway to where you can even put some great monumentation or what they call community aesthetic features, signage to introduce Bonita. You can even have the opportunity to take advantage of the detention ponds that are there by creating some fountains and again some additional wow impact for your entrance into the community.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, so that would create a really nice entrance, and then you could reinforce that with the more context-sensitive treatments along the way in the different character areas. And then coming across the other side of I-75, it's an incredibly wide road, and the lanes are quite wide as well. So to create the space for the separated bike facility, what we're suggesting is doing a slight narrowing of the lanes, which is, by the way, completely in keeping with the state DOT's stated complete streets policy. And so we could fit in the bike facilities on the south side. So we have a very comfortable route, even though it's a very wide street. So this is an Imperial Parkway. It's a very busy street, and will probably get busier over time. And so this is what the bike lanes would look like through there. So they, again, go on the south side. It doesn't change the lanes per se for the motorists, but it does provide the comfortable route for the cycling. This is the this is the most difficult intersection in the corridor. That's at 41. But luckily, there's a feasible way to provide the bike facilities through there. It also shortens the crossing distances for the pedestrians. And I walked from my hotel last night over to the Walgreens, and I would have appreciated it had it been narrowed last night. But yeah, so you can walk across the intersection more comfortably, and you can ride across it, and it keeps all of the lanes that are currently there there. And in addition, with the network, it would operate a whole lot better than it does today. This is moving so from, let's see, Old 41 to West Avenue. So this is the kind of the heavy lifting cross section for the corridor. So basically, it's a 5-lane street for most of it, 2 lanes in each direction plus left turn lanes. And by reallocating the space, we can still keep it a 5-lane road, but have the facilities on the south side. It's making the street very comfortable for walking and cycling. This is what we call the Gulf Gateway. Right now, it has a sort of highway curve through. There's several problems in the area. You have a couple of disconnected parking lots. There's a bunch of conflicts here down at the Barefoot Beach Boulevard entrance. There's also a lot of functions all happening around the restaurant here at King's Q. There's high speeds. There's folks on motorcycles not making the turn. So there's all kinds of issues in that area. It's not very friendly for pedestrians. So we thought while we're at it, we would make a suggestion for the end of the corridor to help it meet its potential. And we came up with this idea. Today, the street narrows to 1 lane in each direction on most of the beach. And what we would suggest is a couple roundabouts at each end and continue the 1 lane through the curve. So what that does is it helps process the traffic nicely with the roundabout as opposed to the signals. The 2 lanes reduces that tendency for people to overtake in the curve and speed. we heard stories about people speeding up to get to the signals, which is exactly what you don't want them doing at the beach. But it also provides more space for more parking, more park. It's easier to cross the street. You can create a refuge so you can cross in multiple places safely. We also suggested a means to connect the parking lots and to change the circulation so you can actually get in and around the parking lots more easily. Down at Barefoot Beach Boulevard, we suggested a number of changes to help reduce the traffic on Barefoot Beach Boulevard by providing an entrance. So there's one way into the parking, but then when you leave, you don't actually have to use Barefoot Beach Boulevard anymore. This was the diagram that we showed last time. The big concern from the community was that you won't be able to get out of Barefoot Beach Boulevard. So we've added a little slip lane so that so where the one-lane facility ends and the two-lane facility starts, that the second lane is actually at the end of the slip lane. So effectively, the Barefoot Beach Boulevard can get onto Bonita Beach Road without having to go through the roundabout. So it's almost like their own lane leading to Bonita Beach Boulevard. So we think that this will help the traffic flow through the area, will make it safer, but probably most importantly, make it pedestrian friendly and bike friendly, and we'll connect the areas to the east to the bike facilities that are further north. We also think it'll make a better place in terms of more parking. The parking circulation will be such that you can actually go between parking lots without having to get back on Bonita Beach Road. Like right now, if one of the parking lots is full, you actually have to leave the parking lot, get on the road, and get back in the other parking lot. Now you won't have to do that, so it actually reduced the traffic on the road itself. We've also changed the circulation in the parking lots, so you're not getting stuck like you do today. So you'll be able to navigate the parking lot a whole lot easier. So then the other part of the project was, our main part was the vision part, but we also wanted to have some direction in terms of the regulatory environment so that as development happens, that it happens consistently with the intentions of the street. So Teresa Mary was on the team, and she attended the workshops and has worked with the staff and has some really cool ideas to share with you about that.
Thank you, Ian. As Ian said, one of the big primary focuses is really from a public investment side and the guidance and the tools that we can provide of how you make a shift in Bonita and the boulevard. But one of the things that you really want to pay close attention to is if you do commit, and when you do commit to all these really large changes, how is the development community going to respond to that? And do you have policies in place that will complement the new design and character that this community has supported along with the elected officials? So saying that, it's a 7.5 mile corridor, and a lot of policies are put into place that look at a corridor just one way, and that's typically most jurisdictions, so you're not alone in that. I know that you've inherited a lot of old policies. This is a relatively new city, so 15, 16 years of new land development regulations, trying to work those into the built environment. So you already have some of those challenges, and staff is very aware of those, and they've actually shared some of the issues that they've had for the current policies in place. So when we look at that from a land development side, you want to kind of see how that exists today. So when Ian and the team came up with all these zones, it's important as well from a policy of, do you change the policies as you are going through the zones? Greg also identified the plant palette, which is can change from the public side, but you can also have landscape standards when your private investment comes in to mirror that and complement it. So the recommendations really are on the beach and community zones. They're kind of the bookends along the corridor. Most of your policies that are already in place would still respond very well to those particular environments. Some is because of the built environment is a little too challenging to make significant changes. and I'll go through those. The two areas of the zones that we would recommend you looking from a policy is the commercial and interstate zones and the historic zone. And I'll go through, what we did is we analyzed from a land development regulation and your comprehensive plan, do you have policies in conflict, or will they support what the recommendations are? So it's a little easier to kind of look at it from an image standpoint. The image that's up here that has the existing policies, this is really on the beach zone and your community zone. This is really what your land development regulations will ask new developers and new development to come in. And it's usually a buffer that's in place. You see that in your community zone with how the residential was built. It did exactly what the policies wanted, which was to build a wall and to separate it from the road. But when you make your shift and change to integrate development with your corridors, some things might be helpful to change. I mean, you still have a nice little buffer in the beach zone. They're too small of parcels, so that buffer usually isn't there, but it would stay in place with all the residential. Now, if you take the opportunity in the commercial zones and the interstate zones to say that perhaps when new development comes, we're going to require maybe the buildings to be a little bit closer. Right now, you have minimum setbacks, so it gives a developer an opportunity to have parking in front. You can see that if you didn't have a pedestrian connection, it's going to make it a challenge for that new development to share in the investment that you as a city are wanting to do. But small modifications and changes to setbacks, where parking is located, and how pedestrians can utilize the new investment along the corridor. Your building features, you have a lot of those policies in place today. It's typically for large-scale developers, so you might want to consider doing that for some of the smaller. Another real significant issue that can happen along this corridor is you have a policy in place for planned unit development, and any piece of land that is 1 acre that wants a particular use has to go through a very long process to approve that particular development. When the city has committed to these designs, it would be very helpful to remove that requirement to go through that arduous process if you have the policies that support your corridor. And then the most significant policies can occur right where the old 41 is, and Ian showed you kind of that lot layout, and some of the keys not only did he show on the roundabouts, and those were public investment, there was a lot of private investment that was being shown of creating blocks, which is really your vehicular standards. How do you create a more urban environment? You do have those policies in place in your old 41. You have a master plan that's adopted, and that could easily be amended, and this particular piece could be included into that plan to make it successful. You also have some other things that you're able to do. I wouldn't recommend throughout the corridor increasing the height. I don't think at this time you need to increase density or intensity, but you could, in this key location that brings you into the downtown, consider a little bit more height. So when a developer wants to reinvest in that land and you're asking for that network, that you're able to provide some incentives for them as well. So those are some of the things that we've been in discussion with the staff, and we'll continue to work on some of those incentives along for the private investors.
Thank you, Tara. So in closing, I think with the help of the leadership and the community and the staff, we've come up with a vision for the corridor that we broke down by character zone. And I think we have a very good beginning on the regulatory response to that, so that your regulations support your vision for the corridor as well. And with that, maybe we could have a discussion.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I would just ask a question, something you had said early on, where, you know, this is not a place where we want to just drive through quickly, but we obviously with the need to move traffic. And I've seen a lot of information there, and I think I get it, but could you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. we want to do two key things. The community wants to keep the car carrying capacity to be able to get up and down. One of the primary objectives was to make sure that folks coming to and from the beach can get off the beach. With the changes on the street itself, plus the network, we can actually increase their ability to get off the beach easily. We want folks to be able to get up and down the corridor in a relatively smooth way. With the roundabouts, we think that folks will be able to get through probably in a shorter travel time, but in what we call a slower and steadier speed. So they're not stopping at red lights, but they're going through roundabouts. In this way, we think that, that what we call the town functions and the traffic functions can actually coexist in harmony on the street. Today, it's more kind of freeway-like, and what we'd like to do is make it more town-like. We want to try and evolve the corridor, particularly where the people are walking and biking, to more of a human scale, and particularly in the beach area at the end, and in the old 41 area, the more historic core. There's other places like the commercial area and the interstate area, which has a slightly different scale, but on the edges, we still want it to be friendly for the bikes and pedestrians.
And real quick, could you explain the difference of, like you say, speeding up to a light versus just kind of driving into a roundabout and continually moving? You're going to approach it a little bit slower, but you're going to keep moving.
Yeah, one of the nice things about roundabouts is that there's no red lights. Like, traffic signals are all about stopping. There's always two approaches or a stop. They're idling, burning gasoline. Folks will find that they'll be in their cars, they'll be able to get through in a shorter time and actually save gas, reduce pollution, reduce noise levels. For anybody who's delivering something, like this is one of the only delivery routes from the interstate, you don't have those trucks going all the way to a stop and then accelerating up. And then as a pedestrian, you're only crossing from the edge of the street to the splitter island, and from the splitter island to the other side of the street. So it'll be very easy for pedestrians to cross, like we showed in the Bradenton example. And for those of you who've been up in the Clearwater, even the largest roundabout in the country, the busiest one in the country, you can still walk across the street. So your challenges aren't quite as serious as that, but it would really help the pedestrian environment. One of the sayings we have is nobody speeds up for a roundabout. But I imagine everybody in the room has had a stale green light in front of them and thought, maybe I should speed up so I don't get caught at the red. And that's how people get injured and killed, is because people speed up, then it turns red, and then someone makes a mistake. Those sorts of things don't happen at roundabouts. The other beautiful thing, I think, from my perspective, particularly in the old 41 area, is that you don't have all that clutter. All the mast arms, all the signal control boxes, all that kind of ugliness of the signalization goes away, and we get to replace it with some beautiful landscaping that Greg identified. So the character of the corridor will change dramatically to be more lush and attractive.
Great. Thank you very much. Council, other questions or thoughts? Fred?
Yeah, my main concern is we're about to wind up this first visioning study. And if we're not careful, we're going to have probably a 5, 6, 7 month gap, because this contract ends and we haven't figured out what we're going to do. And I'm hoping that you would have some things that the city could right now keep going until we get a little further down the road on this visioning study.
Yeah, that's a good concern. I think one of the most important things you could do is probably advance your network efforts in and around 41. Bonita Beach Road will be there for the long run. These opportunities for network disappear quickly, and a lot of them have already disappeared. We had identified a bunch of other potential connections which have been precluded for various reasons. But the opportunities that you already have, which aren't very many, you really, really want to preserve. And
Right.
so that's be my suggestion.
Okay, great. Thank you. Arlene?
Additionally, staff on June 1st will be presenting to you an opportunity to continue our relationship with Tool Design. That way we can continue having sort of an on-call service where we can, as projects come forward, as we continue to work with McMahon, or as private development comes forward, we can run those plans through tool design to make sure we're in keeping with the vision and also getting feedback of amendments and changes we should make. So we will be bringing that as an extension to the existing contract on June 1st. We're going to be proposing about $35,000 for the year. This project, the visioning project, was about $88,950, so we have about $10,000 remaining in this fiscal year, which will kind of line up with the McMahon study happening in September, and we'd be looking at having $25,000 in the next fiscal year for that continuing relationship, as we would also come forward to you if we felt the need for additional review time, or if we needed some more detailed, from tool design, some more detailed planning.
Thank you. Council?
Is that money for both Tool and McMahon, or just for Tool?
That is solely for tool.
Okay.
Pete?
Yeah, I had a few points. One is, first of all, excellent presentation. It's an awful lot of work. As many of us know, the original comprehensive plan for Bonita Springs from the year 2000 had a vision that said Beach Road should be a beautiful commercial parkway. So this is a huge step 16 years later toward that. So thank you for that. A few other points. I was very happy that you put up examples of other towns because although that vision existed 16 years ago, it really, this kind of thing hadn't been done so much except in limited areas in the States. Since then, it is happening time and time across the country, and thank you for doing that. One thing I wanted to mention was Sarasota, where Tamiami Trail, they call it Tamiami Trail in Sarasota, far more traffic than Bonita Beach Road, and they have, working with FDOT District 1, putting in a series of roundabouts to keep traffic moving at a regular pace. The other point is more of a procedural one. I actually want to thank the mayor because this was his idea when we were in the middle of that whole notion of some people wanted an overpass at that intersection. So thank you for that, Peter. I think this is a big step forward for us. So,
great. Thank you. Amy?
I just have a procedural one. To preserve the network in all the areas that were mentioned, can the staff be working on that immediately, or do we have to have?
Audrey?
We have to give direction to them.
Thank you. I just want to point out there is a Florida statute 337/2735, where you may record municipal maps of reservation for transportation. There are impacts on it, but does require ordinances, and it is something that staff can work on if council goes forward.
Okay.
Isn't that part of what McMahon is doing?
Well, part of McMahon is providing a study for you to show those locations.
Right.
Is that just for the quadrant or for other there are other areas of networking that were mentioned?
No, the study for McMahon is solely the quadrant.
See, I would like to have included some of these other things that were mentioned in networking here, because I think that some of the longer-term networking issues need to be addressed now, and if we could just somehow preserve them, I don't know if there's a cost implication there, but.
I think also the council probably is aware that many of the places that were shown today are actually across private property. And so we would have to be working with the private property owners as well.
Well, that's why I think we need to.
And also Collier County, and when we're talking of Beach Road and Barefoot, that's all Collier County
And also Estero has
Right.
an interest on that northeast part of it. So there's lots of combinations that need to be addressed, but I don't want to leave it for another 6 months to a year when people look at this and they'll say, okay, you'll never get this property.
Right. Anything else, council?
No, we're good.
Anything else from you folks?
Yeah, I'd just like to weigh in a little bit on your vision of not having the flyover. I live in Maitland, Florida, and we have 2 flyovers that were done, and the justification was very similar to what was being argued here, and it has ruined the 2 areas that the flyovers went in. So very good in stopping that. I think this network solution, you can either layer up or layer out, and you're layering out, and that's the smart thing from a community character and scale perspective. So that was a very good leap forward. One of the challenges particularly around the beach area, is that there are private properties and different jurisdictions. So I think probably one of the biggest challenges is sort of inter-cooperation between the private sector, the city, and the various counties. But I think with a shared vision, that can come together fairly nicely.
Right. And I guess I just have one last question. For those that would argue emergency evacuation from the beach in the case of, tropical storms, hurricanes, the like.
Yeah, one of the things that I think the network will provide is some redundancy. Like right now, all your eggs are in one basket. I think with some of these new network areas that you'll have a few choices. With the nice thing about roundabouts is they work when the electricity's on or off. So unlike signals, so I think you'll be better off that way as well. Otherwise, it's not a big change.
Sure. Okay.
Plus, if there is some sort of bad event, at least you can walk and bike easier, which I did after the big hurricanes that went through Orlando. I used my bike because the streets are impassable for cars, so I used my bike during those 10 days when they were impassable.
Great, great. Anybody, anything else? Marlene?
We will be receiving the draft report from Tool Design for staff to review, and then the final report, we will make sure that it's published online, and we'll have it available for the public to view.
Great. Fred, did you have something?
Well, I just want to reiterate, I think that one thing Arlene touched on is really good, that they need to be available to work with some of these developments that are being proposed along the Bonita, because they'll accommodate you. I know several of them have mentioned they'd be willing to do all kind of things if they know what they're supposed to do.
Right.
So I think that's good. I think that what you've done is great, and looking forward to more of it.
Yeah, one of the things, obviously, this is a Lee County road. Commissioner Kiker was here today. We spent some time with him a few weeks ago, very interested in the project. So outreach to them is ongoing, and more of that, the better. After all, it is their road. Secondly, if you remember back when the flyover study was shut down, Carmen Monroy, who was then locally at FDOT 1, now has a big job at FDOT in Tallahassee representing Bill Hadaway, said District 1 really liked the idea of the visioning study. And they are waiting, as you know, Carl, they are waiting for us to get back to them with respect to this for their input. The other thing to note is District 1 now has a corridor study team, which actually includes some people who were at Ian's presentation 2 months ago. So making that link back to Mr. Hadaway and his team is obviously of high importance.
Right. And
Great.
Mr. Mayor, if I
yes,
might.
Carl, please.
So I call her the new Carmen Monroy, but representative from FDOT in that same position down here was here today as well. I'm not even sure she's still here, but she's still here. Well, Derek, would you like to stand up? Go ahead. All right. This is the new Carmen Monroy. I'm pleased to say that I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to hire Derek in the city of Cape Coral as the planning manager there when I was there. So she and I have worked together before, and it's been a pleasure, and I hope it continues to be. Derek, okay. So I wanted to get back to this contract that's proposal for June 1st that Arlene had mentioned previously. We see this as an opportunity, again, for Ian to weigh in on any number of things on kind of on call, so he's compensated fairly for doing that. But we also envision that as part of the quarterbacking function that the council's been talking about, to have, an individual who's kind of riding herd over all of the multiple efforts we're going to be making as a city, as staff, as the other consultants come and go on the project. And we just think it's a good fit, especially for someone who's actually been creating and talking about the vision.
Great. Thank you, Carl. Anybody, anything else? Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And before we move on quickly to the consent agenda, I just wanted to add, yes, Lee County Commissioner Larry Kiker was here. Sorry I did not recognize him earlier. I know, as Peter said, he is very interested in this project. And I also want to recognize State Representative Matt Hudson, who's here in the back. Say hello. And did I miss any other elected officials? Okay, sorry I didn't do that earlier. Thank you for both being here. Okay, now item 7 on the consent agenda. Council, is there any items you'd like to pull?
G and H, please.
G and H.
E, please,
Any
just for
others?
discussion.
E is in...
Just for discussion.
E is in Eric. Okay. Any others? Okay, do we have a motion?
Move to approve the rest.
Second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilman DeWitt?
Aye.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilman Karumba?
Aye.
Okay, great. Why don't we start with E? Greg?
Just for discussion, I just was going to ask Carl, as a learning experience, how do we send bids out for something of this size? Is an RFP, and then we get respective bidders, or do we call local people on this? How do we do it? And as I think Nicole talked about, we only had one to respond, and it was out of sight.
How we actually advertise for bids is, of course, anything over 25,000. It's sealed bid.
Okay.
So we do advertise that in the newspaper. It's on our city website. We follow all advertising procedures. We also have a vendor list that we maintain, and we do send it out to them. What will actually help us, we believe, is the new e-bid program that Laura and her staff have put together, because it will be stop shopping in a way where all vendors can go there and see everything that the city has going on. So
Yes.
we're hoping that should
I was
greatly
just
help
a little
us.
concerned that we only got one bid back for a project this size, and it's above. I
We
mean,
actually
well
had
above what we thought.
we actually had 6 firms come to the mandatory pre-bid.
Mhm.
So we did have 6 that a lot of times, though, the first question they ask is, what's your budget?
Right.
And sometimes if they feel they can't meet within that, they just don't bid.
Okay.
We also have to remember that, it's busy out there. A lot of construction going on. There's a lot of competition for the same contractors to do work.
And labor well, and that's what I was thinking, a lot of competition, so they want something like this, but obviously not. All right.
Yeah,
Thanks.
typically years back we would have had a lot more.
Well, and that's
bid
what
than
I
now.
thought in the past.
Yep. Yep.
I make a motion to approve what staff wanted to reject the bid.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Council? Roll call, please.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Karumba?
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt?
Aye.
Okay, G. Peter?
Yeah, real quick as well. Obviously, I'm for this. This is the proposal for the Florida Forever application up by Corkscrew Road for Crew property or adjacent to Crew. I met yesterday, we had a great discussion with Brad Cornell, who was here this morning and spoke. Explained to him some of our priorities in Bonita with respect to the DRGR. He was thrilled by that. Said look forward to having him on the team as we move forward with respect to that. And the second thing is I had some conversations with Mayor Bedos as well. They have a similar letter that's in front of them today. And I suggested to Brad that, consistent with what they're doing in Estero and their letter, that we would add some language in to ours. He thought it was fine. So I'm just going to read that suggestion, which is more than fine with Brad. It's adding a paragraph that's, and I can give this to Carl if people are happy with it. Preservation of our watershed. This is in our letter from the mayor. Preservation of our watershed is of great importance to our residents. As an example of this importance, among the highest priority initiatives in the City of Bonita Springs strategic plan are those to procure funding for the acquisition on a willing seller basis of certain areas in northeast Bonita Springs, together with Edison Farms located contiguous to Bonita Springs. These areas, not the subject of the instant request, have long documented history of environmental importance. So that's it. It just kind of ties a knot around the whole concept here.
Okay. Thanks, Peter.
So I would move this with that change, and I can give that language to Carl.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? No? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba.
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt.
Aye.
Councilman
Aye.
Slaughter.
Okay, H, Peter.
H, this is the local gas tax, and the proposal here is to extend our interlocal agreement to 1919. The notion that the assistant county manager wanted to, I guess at that point from reading this, reconsider the allocation percentages of the various municipalities. Eyeballing this, it's obvious that we are not getting a, how can I put it, a share proportionate with our population, to say the least. There's one municipality, God bless them, that's getting half the amount that Lee County is getting. What's recited here is that everybody participates 50-50 on population on centerline miles, with the exception of Cape Coral, Fort Myers, and Sanibel. Nothing against Cape Coral, Fort Myers, and Sanibel, but if you look at the county revenue report, lays out the history, there are consistently separate deals worked out to their credit by those cities with respect to local gas tax funds, and we are way behind, right? So, I mean, Sanibel gets almost $1 million, and we get $800,000. Cape Coral, forget it, right? It's $4.7 million versus our $956. My point is this. At least according to the Lee County Revenue Manual, Cape Coral, their deal expires in 2017. What I'd like to suggest, Carl, is that if P. Whitten wants our local agreement extended, why not extend it contemporaneous with Cape Coral? And then we're in a position when Lee County is negotiating with Cape Coral, that at least we be in the game, as opposed to agreeing to go to 2019. So my suggestion on that is for you to take that back and talk to Pete and see if that makes sense. If it doesn't for some reason, come at the next meeting and we go back to what he wants, which is, I think, 2019.
Okay,
All right.
understood. Okay. Ann, you okay?
Ann Wright, Finance Director. If I can just make an observation, this percentage that we are getting is in line with our population and their centerline miles.
Right.
So we are getting our percentage. The adjustment for any variances where, because of these other arrangements, jurisdictions are getting higher than that formula,
Right.
is actually a reduction to the Lee County unincorporated.
Right, and what I'm saying is I want in.
You want to get a higher percentage?
Well, if it's good for Cape Coral, if it's good for Sanibel, it's good for Fort Myers, maybe it's good for us. But if on the other hand, if what Lee County is thinking of is they're going to bring everybody down to where we are, I'm okay with that too.
That's what he indicated, is that they
but-
want to put
Right,
in.
but that's going to happen the way I read it in 2017 at Cape Coral, not 2019.
But there's other jurisdictions that they've already put on the August 2019 cycle.
Right, but without getting into more detail, I wouldn't want to be in 2019 extended out and have the Cape in 2017 continued at half the amount that the county is getting, at least without having us have an opportunity to get into the conversation.
Okay. Yeah, we
That's
can
all.
certainly make the inquiry. Our current agreement does expire June 21st, so we'll get it so that we can get it back to the next meeting. Thank you.
So I think the Cape, Carl, you were there. They did a great job. But now you're here.
Back at it, Carl. Council, anything else? Okay.
We need a motion on it, don't
we? Yeah, but is any further discussion for anybody?
So what do we do, Carl? We a motion
But
back.
just a motion to, well, I mean, I've received direction to go back at 2017. We're going to bring it
Yeah,
back
change
to
the
you
date.
on,
Okay.
to go to 2017, and we'll bring it back to you on June 1st, let you know how those went.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Thanks.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I don't think you need one.
No. Well, but we still need to pass this, right?
No, we're not.
We're good.
Passing it. We're good.
All right, we're good. My mistake. All right.
We're not passing it.
We're good. We're not doing anything. Very good. Okay, and that gets us through the consent agenda. Mayor and council member items. Item A, here is a discussion on road closures for events. I brought this forward, and I guess I'll let Laura Taylor get us started.
Okay, so what we've done here on the green sheet is just put together a list of events that we do road closures for here in the city. We have approximately around 64 permits that come through per year. We have 6 events that request road closures, and they come before council within the special event permit. Out of those 6 events, that equals about 16 days of road closures. 9 days are full day road closures, and the rest are partial, evening closures, some of the day closures. So we do have Celebrate Bonita, 4th of July, Holiday in the Park, Movies in the Park, the Rotary Club's Taste of Bonita event on Sundays, and the National Art Festivals. The city is in a 5-year agreement with the National Art Festival. We are now going into our 4th year of festivals. So I'm here for any questions. We also have our lieutenant of the community policing unit here for any public safety questions on road closures.
Right. And, you know, I just wanted to bring this forward. I do hear from businesses downtown, you know. How do we, I guess, how do we balance this? 16 days out of the year for some doesn't sound like a lot, and we're balancing, obviously, the interests of our community to serve our community and diversify our community to appeal to different folks. Mm-hmm. However, on the day in and the day out of the businesses that grumble on these 16 days and probably beyond, where's the happy medium?
Well, we have been trying to work with the local businesses as much as possible. In 2013, when the National Art Festival's agreement was put into place, we did go down and talk with them. In 2014, we heard there were a lot of concerns with the road closures. So we did walk the corridor, meet with them. We send letters. We've put event signs in place to say that the corridor is still open for business. We have amended the road closures where we can to start at Reynolds instead of Wilson. For some of the events, and some of the events, our Celebrate Bonitas are on Saturdays. Our Taste of Bonita is a Sunday. Our movies are evenings. They don't start until 6:30 p.m. in the evening. Our Holiday in the Park is a Tuesday evening. So we're always trying to stay in touch, do what we can, take hard looks at the events that do require road closures, do road closures sparingly. Staff wouldn't recommend a road closure to council with the special event permit unless we felt like there was a public safety component that needed to be addressed for a road closure. But we certainly take another look at the road closures if that's something council would like us to do and bring it back.
Well, and you know, we're not there yet, but let's face it, at some point, somebody's gonna buy that lot or enter in negotiations with us to develop the lot there on the river. And I would hate to be, as you mentioned earlier, in the middle of a 5-year agreement with an art festival, and then all of a sudden we can't honor that for whatever reason. And so just trying to be proactive, forward-reaching, forward-looking if we can. Do we have to close the streets? I guess is really the bottom line. Do we have to close them? Or are there other things we can look at, Laura?
In our discussions with our Lee County Sheriff's Office, which Lieutenant Prespolowski is here today if you'd like to talk to him, the answer is yes. For events like the Art Festival, that's 10,000 to 12,000 people that are coming into the downtown area. The recommendation from the Sheriff's Office is to close the streets with events of that size. The Movies in the Park is something that we could take a look at. That one, we only have about 200 people. There was a road closure done for that due to it being children in the area and the noise for the movie. We did talk with the Sheriff's Office in a meeting last week just to see, what events can we look at? Is there anything that we could amend? And the Movies in the Park is one that we thought, well, maybe if we put a crossing deputy there, since it's 150 to 200 people for those, and it's in the evening, that might be something that we could look to do with the. It's interesting. We went back and looked at the road closures. We worked with the Art Festival, the downtown businesses as much as possible, and then we have a downtown project. So every year we've been looking at different routes and different things that have come up, and tried to stay working with the businesses and the event organizers and the Lee County Sheriff's Office for public safety as much as possible. So this year with the downtown project, we did have 2 movies where we talked with the Sheriff's Office and they were able to just cross the pedestrians. So that's something for the movies that we could look at doing for the future, for the next special event permit that comes to council. But the others, the events that are over 4,000 people, the recommendation is to close that portion of 41. And if you'd like to talk to him, we can.
Sure, sure. No,
Mike?
Also, are we taking into account our new road? It was designed to be safer for pedestrians to cross, and the hope was that we wouldn't have to close the road. Also, we need to look at Naples, Fifth Ave. All the merchants down there got fed up with the road being closed all the time, and they made a law where it can only be closed 3 times a year.
Okay.
So,
yeah, and if council wants to take a look at that, you're absolutely welcome to. The one thing I would say is we have talked about, and this is up to you how you'd like to do it, after the road is complete, because it has changed, and we are looking to the future, and our events continue to grow. Sure. We might look at having a traffic engineer come in and do a plan for us with the new changes to the road. So we have something to work off of as far as with the Sheriff's Office, the traffic engineer, and council to let us know what the parameters are. If the answer is we really don't want to have any additional events that are 10 to 12,000 people because of the road closures, we can definitely look at that. But if we're trying to find a fine balance here, and 64 events throughout the city, we're really at 6 events that have road closures. So we are careful there as much as we can be and trying to communicate. But whatever direction you have, we will work with it.
well, the other thing is the parking on lots that we're going to sell. So the parking's not going to be there. So we really need to be looking to Depot Park, other places to park them, and then they no longer have to cross the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where I was trying to get earlier was my thought. Thank you, Mike, for finishing that thought.
Mayor, could we hear from Lieutenant?
Mm-hmm.
Lieutenant Brian Prespolisky for the record. Yeah, we looked at this with Lauren. I sat down with her, and you just have too much spill out of pedestrians on the roadways. Your event, like the movies in the park, for example, and Laura and I told that's centered in a different area where you're not having spill out into a major road. Celebrate Bonita, you have a beer tent that's right on that where it's at. The people wandering, they're used to that road is part of actually the event itself. Right. Your major parking is on the west side of Old 41, and I heard what Mike just said and what the mayor just said about the parking in Depot Park. But your major people all coming from the west to the east to get into your park to enjoy your events. It's just a large volume pedestrian traffic, and we don't need anybody getting hurt.
Sure. Well, and larger events like Celebrate Bonita, it's a community event. It's understandable. But like with the art show, we're basically shutting down merchants down there for other merchants to come in and make money. Is the big concern of the merchants that are on Old 41.
Laura could talk about the actual merchants moving in and out, but I'm talking about the actual event when you have 3,000 to 5,000 people moving in and out all weekend in the road. That's my biggest concern is I don't need somebody hit by a car. I don't need somebody to get hurt. So.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the agreement goes, we are in that agreement currently. Before that agreement would be authorized for an extension or a new agreement, it would come back to council, and at that time we could take any input. If the direction from council is in the future, this isn't the event in the same way that it's been done in the past, definitely have feedback at that point and work to negotiate that or amend the agreement or not approve the agreement.
We have 2 great institutions. We have the Art League, the Center for the Arts, and we have our merchants downtown who are under a lot of strain. Now, the promised land's on the other end. I mean, it's going to be great. So it is something to think about. And Brian, I am thinking about what Mike just said. In other words, when we have those 1 lanes, maybe it can be somewhat safer than the old 41 configuration. But that's not, we don't have that today. We have it in some part of it today.
Yeah, and Peter, I totally agree.
Right.
It's the actual area of where the park is at, that road has become part of the event. I mean, you go to the one that's coming up 4th of July, the bed races and things we have that actually happen on Old 41.
And that's understandable. I think all the merchants are fine with shutting down on 4th of July and Celebrate Bonita. But it's all the other events, especially in season. It makes a huge difference. When your business is going to be down 50 to 75% on a in-season weekend, and it happens 3 times a weekend for the art show, and then there's other things, it makes a huge difference. And we're all trying to make money in season is the problem.
And we can review those again, but the ones that we do close the road for, the only events that we close the road for are Celebrate Bonita, 4th of July, Holiday in the Park, the Taste of Bonita, which is the Sunday event for the Rotary, and the art festivals. The other ones that happen in the park, we do not close the road for, or we have not in the last couple of years.
Veterans Day, 9/11.
Veterans Day, no. Patriots Day, 9/11. The concerts, it basically the threshold, if it gets to about 4,000, that's where we tend to look at it and get with the sheriff's office. And obviously, if the organizer requests a road closure, we talk with them and we work through it, and we work with the sheriff's office before bringing that to council.
Mr. Mayor, if I might.
Yes, please.
Just so, and I'm sure council's aware of this, staff is working to be resistant to additional requests for closures, and we always have, being sensitive. There are other events that go on through the years where people have actually asked us, well, why don't you close the road? We can't hear well enough, whatever it is. And we've been resistant to that. We've not added road closures. So I think really what Councilmember Gibson said was very apropos to this conversation, which is the conditions, I think, are going to change dramatically when the construction is over. And you're going to be looking at different traffic, traveling at a different speed, acting differently, opportunities for pedestrians, as was said, to cross more safely. And that would certainly be a great opportunity to take another look at this.
Okay, so do we need to, what? Here we are.
It's a discussion.
Yeah, it's a discussion. It's a discussion. I think I know you hear our concerns. And I continue to hear them. I know Mike continues to hear them. I'm not sure who else does, but that I did want to bring this forward as we're starting to evolve down there and looking at those lots across the street, just knowing somehow, some way to, I think we get it. We don't need to. Fred, go ahead.
Oh, no, all I want to make sure that we're inventorying votes is what it's called. Count me in on.
Are we polling the council? Let Fred poll the council.
I am for less times that we have the roads closed. I do agree, 4th of July, Celebrate Bonita, probably that arts festival, possibly, but I think we need to help the merchants out down there. We've put them through a lot of grief, even though they want it done. It's probably a lot worse than they anticipated.
Are we polling, Mike?
Well, and I would say we need to look at the parking situation because we are going to lose the event parking lots. And if if everybody's parking on the other side, there's no reason to close down the roads, with the exception of 4th of July, Celebrate Bonita, things like that.
Well,
and also, the art show didn't get to use the road this past season because of the construction, so obviously they can work around things like that. So
Yeah, I don't think there should be an expectation we're going to be able to take all the parking on the east side of the road and somehow move it to the west side. I just don't think that capacity's ever going to be there. However, we do have plans for additional parking lots on the east side in anticipation of future development of overflow, what we call overflow lots now, as well as taking a look at more opportunities for parking on the west side as well.
and that, we're looking at the where the stormwater project's going to go off of what do you call it?
Correct.
Reynolds there, right?
Abernathy, yep.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And so that would be more, it would help out with the flow of the walking traffic. Because right now, where they're parking in multiple spots, they're crossing the road in multiple spots. When they're coming from one location like that, we could have a officer there to help with the crossing instead of having to just, blanket shut down the road. Just, funnel everybody into one area.
Pete, anything further? Okay. Steve?
I I believe in what Mike is saying, that the other merchants are there making money and he's losing money, and we certainly don't want that to happen. But, you know, I'm also looking at the lieutenant there, and I'm really concerned about safety as he is and everybody else, but somehow we got to get a balance going here to get this thing taken care of.
Right, right. Thanks, Steve. Greg?
Yeah, I agree. Just kind of getting back to what Brian's saying, I think we're kind of missing the point with the parking. I don't think it's the people parking and coming to the event. It's, I think, what Brian's saying, Lieutenant Presbelusi, sorry, is saying that the spillover from the event is going into the road. It's not.
That's what it is.
I'm parking
Yeah.
over at, over at communities, the old community center, walking across the street. It's that the event is so large, it's spilling out into the road itself. It's not so much the crossing of it. So moving the parking from the east side to the west side is going to help with the crossing, but the actual size of the event, I think, is where the true safety issue comes from. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lieutenant.
No, that was my point, and I apologize. I was the east side. I got my directions messed up. Water's to the west, I know. East side,
Not
the
in New
majority
Hampshire.
of parking is right now, and I totally agree. You have the community substation that's over there, and I know you guys have projects for that. That's going to be additional parking if I don't know what's going on, but you're going to have areas, but the spill out, it just becomes so much of the event that's
the
where-
issue, not the
I mean,
crossing of it.
yeah, because I have 2 crosswalks in that area.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Pete?
No, just, I think, Carl, you and the sheriff's office, you're looking at this, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Factually, what we come down to is if there's not an objection to closing the roads on Celebrate July 4th, in other words, truly community events, and we can take a look again at movies in the park, okay? But I'm not sure that that's much of a major impact on the businesses down there because it's typically at hours when the businesses are close to closing at that time anyway. I mean, the fact of the matter is we're really talking about the Art Fest is what we're talking about here.
That's right.
And we are, like I said, we're heading into our, like Laura said, into our 4th year in a 5-year contract. So we're relatively close on that. And we're relatively even closer on construction being concluded downtown as well. So we hear the council.
Thank
We
you.
hear
Okay. Amy?
Okay.
Well, I just want to say that I think that if you focus on that one event, that the logistics is something that could be attended to, either in controlling the excess people that are spilling over, controlling the parking and the direction in which people are parking, how are they getting to the event. And you have an ideal situation here if you have 1 year left in the contract to try to work with these people, because we want to encourage them to come back, but we also want them to be in a situation where the community can get what they want to. So I think you have like one task, and that Carl already pointed out. So, but also try not to hurt our merchants.
Great. Anybody, anything else? Okay, great. Thank you, Laura. Thank you. Okay, moving along. Roman numeral 9. Hold the public hearing to consider adoption of the following zoning resolution, and comment is limited to participants in the zoning board hearing on April 19th, 2016. Audrey?
Yes, thank you. For the record, Audrey Vance. This is a continuation of the case that was heard on May 4th, 2016. During the case, I was requested to provide a legal opinion as to sewer, and it was continued for 2 weeks. You now have my legal opinion, which is included in the backup, along with the one from the applicant. I will say that I wrote mine first, and then she got some of the stuff. But, I mean, which is perfectly fine. I don't know if Amanda Brock is here for the applicant. Okay, so Stacy Hewitt is representing the applicant, and I'm not sure what council needs further. And Mike Fegon is here, who is the planner responsible for this case.
Right. Hello. Counsel?
We just hear from the applicant.
Sure. Okay, great.
Good morning. For the record, Stacy Hewitt, representing the applicant. I just wanted to put on record that there was a question as far as whether or not the council could approve the special exception because of the locational standards. And just in the record, the staff report issued that we were in compliance. The zoning board recommended approval, stating we were in compliance. And there was, in both of the legal opinions submitted, there was annotation for that specific code in that specifically stated that it was interpreted as septic or sanitary sewer. So the applicant's position is just that we hold that it does meet all the findings and conclusions, and is we respectfully request approval. So.
Council? Amy?
I have a question. I don't know if this is possible, but I did review the zoning video and some of the discussions that ensued in regard to central sewer. Would the council be in a position to say we approve this model, but with the condition that there is an annotation that we are considering seriously the adoption of a central sewer mandatory ordinance, and that these lots, indeed all the lots in Sun Village, would be subject to a mandatory hookup, so that any purchasers of the property would know that they would be subject to additional costs? Is that possible to add as a condition?
I think it would be difficult to add as a condition to the contract because of the fact that they're asking for a model home. But I think it is possible to have signage requirements in the model home that would have a condition. We do that frequently with consumption on premises. We have requirements where people know not to bring alcohol past a certain point. Say if they're at a beach park, Mediterra has one like that. We have same thing at the flea market. So it is possible to place signage wherever customers would be in the model home, you know, an 11 by 17 or a bigger sign with that type of statement.
Okay.
And that could be as a condition in the approval.
My concern is because I can't speak for the council, but I am in favor of the proposed ordinance that we're developing. I know I don't know exactly where we are in that, but it should be part of our hearings in the next few months.
Well,
no?
Understand, we have an existing mandatory sewer connection. This property fell within what we consider, lack of a better term, I could call it a loophole. It is one where it was intended to deal with minimum use determinations, and I sent a letter to Jim Worcester. I believe it's in your record here. You know, this is a minimum use determination. We have obligations under federal law, under Florida law, to allow a lot of record that existed prior to the comp plan to continue to go forward because it was platted, it was set forth. But at the same time, there's no obligation that we require a model home. If you do want to have a model home, you could add certain conditions to that model home that reasonably relate and do not create an exaction. And I think a signage condition would be one of them. As to when it will occur, that's really up to our partner, Bonita Springs Utilities, who actually would have control of when it could or could not go forward. I do want to point out that Mary Mima was part of the record in the case below, and she can speak if council has any questions to her.
Yes, sir.
I just wonder if it makes you feel any better. We take our sell and purchase agreements very seriously, and we
And your name
have
for the record?
Wayne Everett with D.R. Horton.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Wayne.
And we do have a disclosure that is made a part of our sales and purchase agreement for all buyers that specifically states that, you know, at some point in the future, there could be sewer, and at that time, they could be required or would be required to connect and pay the fees. You know, it's a formal disclosure that's a part of our sell and purchase agreement.
And just, I know this has nothing to do with the point at hand, but if the council suggested that you get together with Bonita Springs Utilities and try to work out something so that it is possible that these sewers could come in as you're building the properties, because it seems like the septic system would be an additional cost that they would need to be borne by your purchasers.
I actually have met with Bonita Springs Utilities, both the director and staff, and the very best that they could dream to work on is 18 months. And we already have about 18 homes under construction. We won't be there in 18 months.
Well, I think that time frame, there's a contradiction in that time frame, because I think the last time we heard it was like 9 months or something. So
I'm
would
not,
it be possible to at least consider going back to the drawing board?
I mean, I can't commit to that, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Audrey?
The only thing I would add is, at the request of City Manager Schwing, I did prepare a potential condition verbiage that could be utilized to deal with the signage, as Councilmember Carumba had pointed out. And that condition would read, if council was wanting to approve this and wanting a condition to this effect, the developer will place a 11 by 17 or larger signs clearly visible to potential purchasers inside the mobile home. The sign will explain that this D.R. Horton project is located in Sun Village Estates, and as built, the property will have a septic tank. The City of Bonita Springs has a mandatory sewer connection ordinance, and when sewer is available by Bonita Springs Utilities, the homeowners will be required to discontinue the septic system and connect to the sewer system.
Good
That
enough.
would put owners on notice.
That's good.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
If I could just request for the applicant if we could change when to when and if.
Sure.
Okay.
That I think, well, if you understand, because there is a chance that it will never, so.
Okay.
But that's up to council.
I guess the only other thing you might add on that is that if they have any questions, to contact the town manager to get a feeling for whether this would be a likely possibility, or else Bonita Springs, so that it could go to fuller information. I'll let
Probably
that-
Bonita Springs Utilities, because they're the
Yeah,
ones
or-
that dictate it.
Because my concern is that this is more imminent than we're talking about. This is not a possibility in the long-term future. I could be wrong, but we could have Bonita Springs Utility speak to that. But I also encourage all parties to get together to see if we can facilitate this. And I'd like to have clarifications from Audrey about why, we do have a mandatory sewer connection, and this new ordinance that we're considering, why is that different? What are we adding to
We're
it?
talking about amending it, and one of the options was to look at providing additional requirements if you were building in the DRGR. That was one concept. The problem that happened, and I mentioned it at the last, I think it was the last council meeting, might have been the last council meeting, seems so long ago, was that when I looked at places where they did have the additional enhancements, the sewer, the BSU, or the sewer operations was handled differently. So in our situation, we have a mandatory sewer connection with our franchised entity, Bonita Springs Utilities. We don't have an in-house utility. So it's not the same as just saying, utility, you must do this, because now we're going into their obligations.
Greg?
Just a quick question, just a clarification, Audrey, on this. If these houses are built, if and when they're built, like you said, he's got 18 of them under construction right now, and then BSU comes in 6 months or 6 years from now, according to our ordinance, they have to hook up, correct or not?
They have to, as I understand the mandatory sewer connection, once you have the utility, when you have sewer lines right to a single-family residential and it's available at that point, they have to hook up.
That's what,
And
okay.
if it is something where it's a development, if it was a development and it was a normal development and they had to obtain a development order, they would have to hook up.
They would have to hook up.
In this situation, because of their distance, I believe it's a 1/4 mile under our current ordinance, but that would be the same at anywhere in the city, and I don't know if you wanted to be more geographically protective. And there are governments that do that, but the problem is in the governments that do that, they're also the utility operator, which makes it a little easier.
Okay.
Mary Mima, Bonita Springs Utilities. I just want to add that we did do a preliminary study back in around 2001 to provide sewer in that whole area, not just where these homes are being built. It is currently not within our CIP to do that project, not to say that that couldn't change. And also, once we do bring sewer into a community, the statute provides that we give them legal notice that they have 1 year to connect to that sewer system.
Okay.
So,
Great.
all right.
Pete, did you have, I'm sorry. Okay.
But you're currently within what distance to the Sun Village?
There's a force main that's within a quarter mile, but
Okay,
the
and-
force main does not provide the system that they can connect to with a home.
But one of the reasons why we can't compel them to do that is because this is not a planned development, because it's considered a single-family home on each of the
Correct.
18 or 34 things.
The lot
So
of record.
The lot of record, but if this were not individually permitted, they would be required to connect to that force main. It's just a quirk of the minimal use designation, is that correct?
That's correct. Minimum use determination, part of the administrative section of the comprehensive plan.
But that doesn't just have to do with size of lots, it has to do with everything?
It actually does have to do with size of lots. What it does is recognize that lots that were created prior to certain thresholds, whether it was 1962 zoning or 1984 comprehensive planning, the density requirements, that we would entertain them as a lot of record. Because the biggest fear that you have is there are, and I'll give an example, on Little Hickory, there are lots of record that are 50 feet, generally is the width. Some of them do not have the square footage once you go into the depth. Or, while they were supposed to be 50 feet, they because it was 1946, some of them were 45 feet. So we've had situations in the past where council has had to overturn my decision, and I have no objection to council overturning my decision, that lot could be buildable, because otherwise it's a non-buildable lot and you compensate the owner for it.
Pete?
Can we move this with Amy and Carl's suggestion? It sounds like they're similar.
Okay, so the change to the resolution is in your packet. It would go forward, and we would add a condition 10. That condition 10 would read, as I read out loud. I changed it to, and if you want me to read the whole thing again, I can.
No, you just change the verbiage.
Right, if and when is when I went.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sewer is available, and I made a little correction. to
Okay,
grant.
great.
So I would move that.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Do we need to have public comment prior to the?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Public comment.
Whoa.
No,
Only
Oh,
two
yes,
people who are
understood.
participants
I
in
had mentioned that
record, so you
earlier.
have the list.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you wish to get them to talk, feel free. That's it, yeah.
That's me. Well, it looks like we've been had, and I guess we're gonna have to let them go and do this.
See
Thank
the
you.
resolution. Okay, she said it was here.
Okay, anybody else that was at the zoning board hearing on April 19th like to speak? Seeing none, there's been a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilman O'Flynn,
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes,
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba,
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt,
Aye.
Councilman Slack.
Aye.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye. Okay. Item number 10, the first reading and public hearing of the following ordinance. Public comment is allowed here. Audrey.
This is an ordinance of the City of Bonita Springs amending the construction contractor ordinance, Section 12-33, to delete fee requirements per Florida statute, Section 553.80, providing for conflicts of law, severability, codification, scrivener's errors, inclusion in code, and effective date. This is the first reading. The second reading will be held on June 1st, 2016, 5:30 p.m. in these chambers, or at what time is thereafter available. I have advised council about the change in the Florida legislation. I could go again, and I promise not to make strange sounds this time.
Council? Okay.
I'm,
Pete?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. And do we need to take public comment? Yes. Public comment at this time? Seeing none, it's been a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilman Gibson,
Aye.
Councilman Forbes,
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba,
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt,
Aye.
Councilman Slack.
Aye.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn,
Aye.
Okay. Item 11, the second reading and public hearing of the following ordinance.
This is an ordinance of the City of Bonita Springs electing into the applicability provision of the Lee County Ordinance Number 16-04 pertaining to human trafficking, providing for conflicts of law, severability, codification, Scrivener's errors, inclusion in code, and effective date. This is the second reading of the ordinance. The affidavit of publication is available with the city clerk and on file. This ordinance is merely to allow Lee County's ordinance to be enforced within our city boundaries. It is the method that was required. It's a pretty basic ordinance, and
basic.
you did see in the news something happened here recently.
So moved.
Okay. Discussion, council?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. There's been a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Councilwoman Caramba.
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt.
Aye.
Councilman Slatter.
Aye.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Okay. Item B, Audrey.
This is an amendment to Bonita Springs Land Development Code, Chapter 4, amending Section 4-227, public participation, allowing public participation at city council zoning hearings, providing for conflicts of law, severability, codification, Scrivener's errors, inclusion in code, and effective date. This is the second reading of the ordinance. The ordinance was reviewed by both the LPA and city council. I had the first reading. The LPA did find the ordinance consistent with the comprehensive plan. They did have some concern because you could have two different records created. You would have your record below at the zoning board and then a record at city council. And from a legal perspective, and I advised them from a legal perspective, I had no objection to that because it gave me more evidence. So whatever council did gave some credence, but it could create some additional confusion during the process. Just let you know what they wanted.
Okay. Discussion, council?
So move.
Second.
Okay. There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No, I think it's great to give everybody a chance to talk. I mean,
I
if they
just
can't
want-
make one or the other.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm very much in support of this ordinance, and it fulfills some of the concerns that I had during my campaign to have more transparency, so it's really accomplishing one of our goals.
Absolutely. And I agree with everything that's been said. Roll call. Audrey, go ahead.
Have you called public comment?
Public comment?
Well, I'm going to change the Constitution from we the people to us the people. And us want to have something to say about what goes on in this country. Thank you.
Right. Great. Thank you, Rick. Any more public comment? Discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Caramba.
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt.
Aye.
Councilman Slatter.
Aye.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Okay. Item number 12, public comment. Anybody from the public wishing to address anything at this time? Rick,
All right,
hello.
well, back to the closing of Old 41 now. We've been talking about getting more people on Old 41 and putting businesses on Old 41, and then we close the street. It absolutely makes no sense at all, since now that the community center is gone, and hopefully pretty soon we'll have a bathroom on that side of the street down at the Lemon Tree if we move the Dixie Moon over there. And it doesn't make any sense. The poor businessmen, 4th of July, that's a holiday anyways, they're probably closed. Maybe illegal, but, so the Depot Park has a huge amount of land in there now. Maybe we can't park on the grass, but that's a huge parking area down there, all the way down to the river that could be used for parking on that side of the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Anybody else from the public?
She comes.
Hello, Donna.
Good morning again. Donna Stone from Worthington Country Club. I'm on the External Affairs Committee for that area. On Bonita Ground, we're seeing a problem right now. I have witnessed on numerous occasions, at least 5 that I've noted, that the trucks coming from the mine are not stopping at the intersection of Bonita Ground and Bonita Beach Road. They are not even coming to a full stop. They're just coasting right into the intersection. And we really need to address this before we have a catastrophe. I have also witnessed that after 8 o'clock at night, those trucks are still loading and unloading on Bonita Ground. You see them going up and down with empty trucks, coming back with full trucks. Now, I don't live on that road, but we are experiencing the trucks from that road where we live. I would think that you would have some sort of a time limit as to when work is allowed at the mine and when it is supposed to stop. And I think that that really needs to be enforced, and they need to be notified, stop at a certain time, because this is really going on very, very late at night, and it's very unfortunate for everyone in this area. And last night, as you know, at the school board, it's looking at leaving Bonita and going back to Estero for the new high school. I urge the mayor, the city council, to encourage the school board to stay with the Imperial Parkway location. This controversy about the diesel fuel is a very, very doable, easy fix. You dig up the soil, you get a clear parameter around and underneath. The soil that's taken out is taken to a secured environmental location. It is then put through a furnace. The petroleum is burnt off, and that soil is now usable. It doesn't necessarily want to go back to maybe a playground, but it is usable for highway construction and everything else. So this is not a deal breaker. This is something that can be easily and quickly fixed. They already had the certification from their expert that testified that all asbestos has been taken out of that site. So that's a non-issue. So this comment that this is a toxic dump is so erroneous. And it really is preventing us from getting the high school that we so richly deserve in the area where our comp plan says this is the only location. The only other locations are in the DRGR, which we know we do not want a high school going into that area and polluting our drinking water. So I'm urging you, please encourage the school board to act quickly on this, to get it rectified, and to start construction of the high school on the Imperial Parkway. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. Kathy.
Good morning, you all. Okay. My first comment is about the water tower, which was discussed. I was happy to see that it is postponed, and I've mentioned this to the mayor already. I wanted to bring this up. I have an acquaintance who sits on the water board at Homosassa Springs. They had a kind of a similar situation. The water tower was in such disrepair, it couldn't be fixed. And one faction wanted to save it, and the other said, no, we can't spend it. So what their solution was, the faction that wanted to save it raised $1,000 and took possession of it. And then they reached out to online historical nonprofits for help. Now, I don't know what the outcome has been, but of course we have our wonderful historical society here. I hope something can be worked out. Because at the last meeting, that was mentioned, and of course the demolish of the community hall was mentioned, and it kind of was stated that Parks and Recreation didn't do anything. And, you know, let's face it, the buck stops right at the director's shoulders, which in this case is Nicole's, and I don't believe either of those decisions were strictly hers. I mean, that was a major thing. Now, I've spent hours at that community hall. In fact, in the 80s, we used to have our meetings there. And it was old then. And I spent hours there because being on the special events committee, all of our things were stored there. Plus, we did the toy sorting and everything else. And then I was there helping when they decided to demolish to separate everything. Now, that building was 57 years old. And yes, I've had property a long time here. I don't have family roots, and I can understand the kids that grew up here. That was their entertainment. And they're seeing bits and pieces of historical Bonita disappearing, water tower, community hall. But can you imagine refurbishing that, the plumbing, the electrical, the amount of money you or previous councils, or I don't think the residents would even condone that. So as far as it being Parks and Rec not doing anything, I don't think it was just their decision. Now I want to go back to WCIND when Steve thanked Audrey, who of course has gone through this before with the grant things. And she can tell you, she knows the rules. We used to only have 25% of our budget. I'm on the Waterways Advisory Committee for law enforcement, and that's our biggest grant applicants. We've gotten up to 30%. Now, I checked my bill, my tax bill, And last year I paid $12.70 to WCIND. I think I get a big bang for my bucks. And Bonita was one of only 2 applicants that received all their money this year. Last year, we had to give back a percentage. We didn't have enough money. So kudos. You know what you're doing. Let's see. There's not only law enforcement, but remember there is environmental education and boating safety. Crow, Calusa, Nature Center, Turtle Time, Ross Webb with Edison Sailing. How about our artificial reef program through the county? Do you know how much ecotourism money is brought in? Forget spring training and baseball. It's enormous, enormous. And remember, there are matching funds. I wanted to mention something about fire rescue. Could I have just another 60 seconds? Sure. As Greg will tell you, they got a rescue boat about a year or so ago, and they found out that it was too big to get to certain areas. I believe they had a situation where a kayaker was on Mountain Key, had a medical issue, and they couldn't get there. So their request this year on their wish list was a smaller boat, and they had put in for an inflatable one. Well, staff up there had concerns, as we did, and they said, why can't you just get a little John boat or something? Well, he came up with the specifications and all the reasons why. I questioned personally, you know, you're going to a shallow area, what if it punctures the bottom? He answered all of our questions, and we ultimately approved it. Now, hopefully, WCIND will. We know Justin McBride, who's the new director, who took Chuck Listowski's place. We formerly worked with him with natural resources. We know Justin knows us. He knows that we know what they're going to deny and what they're going to approve, so we're pretty careful what we approve. But anyway, we hope you get your inflatable boat so you can rescue people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else from the public at this time? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on to the city attorney's report. Audrey Vance.
Thank you. The first thing I want to do is introduce you to a law student, Mary Cizo, who will be interning in our office this summer. Now, I have 2 interns that I'm planning to have during the summer. Some of the work that Mary has already started includes doing a survey of the supermajority of looking at our actual voting patterns to see which ordinances council had more of a tighter vote, the 4-3, as well as working on the contractor, the alarm system registration, which is a uniform ordinance that is done with multiple, the municipalities and the county, along with the sheriff's office, to make sure that we make our ordinance compliant with new state statutes. Mary is not, this is one of those programs where the city does not pay a penny for any college, for any law school intern. And I want to point out that when we talk students, we're talking about people who have finished their college degree and they are in law school. Mary has 1 year of already finished or doing law school, so she has 2 more remaining. And Ariel will have 2 years. If anybody has any questions of Mary about her background, I believe you are locally, you're from this area, aren't you?
Thank you for choosing us.
Yes. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The next item is the one I mentioned that Mary has done a little bit of work on, and that is the supermajority question. Council had asked the issue about having more than the affirmative vote of 4 council members, which is our current requirement pursuant to the charter. I have not only had the pleasure of reviewing other governments in the state of Florida, I reviewed our own documents, because the city of Bonita Springs already requires a vote of 5 of 7 for matters where they see a greater public interest. So we do have that requirement already as to, for example, the beach renourishment issue, and we also have it with the arts and public places. I did write out a list of areas where I am concerned if you do go forward with this type of ordinance. There are policy concerns, but I don't think that's a legal issue, and I'll let you guys find out any policy concerns you may have as to it. There were some areas where I felt it would follow through and fall in place well, and there were areas where I would be very, I don't want to say the word scared, but there's areas that I would be cautious in going forward. So the areas I would be cautious is anything where we could have a potential discriminatory action. So I'll give an example. When Lee County was dealing with Pueblo Bonito, they denied it. Department of Justice came down. So if we're under a Department of Justice and council's still saying no, that's not a good thing, or requiring a supermajority. I would probably, any comprehensive plan requirements of state law. So I'll give an example. We recently amended our utilities requirements because we're supposed to keep a concurrency level of water facilities. And I wouldn't want something where we don't meet state deadlines as a result of not getting a vote. Same thing with the air. I would think any land development code amendments you could keep as is, but that's a council call. And establishment of community development districts, that's probably debatable whether that's ministerial, although it does require an ordinance, so I'm not sure how to handle that. Change in fee, because again, fees can be very, the formulation of a fee needs to be something where there are fee studies. So when I start something where a supermajority, somebody could legislatively cause the city not to get the money or legislatively create more, it creates more of a problem. And anything as a court order as a result of time passing. Areas where I think a 5-member voting, development agreements, any applicant-initiated comp plan or comp plan affecting private property, any comprehensive plan amendments specifically related to height or density, and that seems to be the area that, like Cocoa Beach, they went with a more specific, just height and density. If you're going to increase height and density, whether it's zoning or whether it is a comprehensive plan amendment, those requirements do require the supermajority. So you are not alone. Other governments do this. And you could do it as far as any proposed rezonings by any applicants. That's up to you. And then vacating of road right-of-way. It's clearly, there's documents showing that that's fine to have it for that reason. So it's up to you. Council, your pleasure.
Okay, Fred, I think you would kick
that-
this off.
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate Audrey's research. One question, and then let me make my general comment. I'm going to proceed slowly and cautiously with this, and I want to give us at least 6 months to get our sea legs. One question I have, where does approving special exceptions fall in your word of caution?
I would treat, it's a good question. I mean, I would tend to think, I had that above, that's an area that you could require a vote of 5 of
All right,
7.
okay.
So I had as any proposed rezoning, including PDs, conventional zoning,
Right.
variances, and special exceptions. So I
Yeah.
did put it as any of them.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I still feel that this is something we should do, but I don't think we need to take it up for at least, maybe 5 to 6 months from now. But I think that anything, especially the special exceptions, they sometimes get to be a bit contentious, and I think that it would be far better to grant somebody a special exception on a supermajority than a slim 4 to 3. When there are contentious, many times a special exception is almost like shaking hands, but then other times they're not. It depends on the circumstance and the use that's being asked for and the location, et cetera, and all that. So anyway, that's my comment.
I would need to have an ordinance prepared for this. I mean,
Yeah.
while there might not be a rush, there would be an ordinance. And if I could make one other suggestion, because this is a policy that's a departure from your normal, you may want to revisit it by either having a sunset provision or just
Yeah.
we will revisit in 2 years, 2 or 4 years, whatever amount of time,
But I do, I
Amy?
personally think that there are certain areas that do have a timeliness to it. I think one of them certainly is the height and probably the density. So I would not be adverse to moving more quickly on certain specific things, but I would rely upon, well, certainly Fred, who's had a lot of experience with LPA and zoning and some of your more experienced council people. But I think the reason why we're even talking about this is because we think there are some critical things that are coming down sooner rather than later, that we feel there should be a strong consensus on the council to vote either one way or the other.
Well,
Fred?
let me amend my idea. I did ask Audrey by a question, and she responded with a memorandum opinion. I think you all got it, which was there any time limit between when LPA reviews an ordinance or something like this and when we have to act on it? And so I would say that maybe what we should do is request the city attorney to prepare a draft ordinance, but before it goes to LPA, let us take a quick look at it to make sure that we've not going to put them through the paces of approving something we don't want, and then let it go to LPA, let them approve it, then anytime you want to pull the trigger on, all she has to do is publish the appropriate advertisement, and then it's the hearings and all that.
Peter?
Yeah, I'll go with the majority on this, not the supermajority. But my personal view is, I commend you, Fred, for raising the issue, but I really do believe we have majority rules and minority rights. I liked your initial idea today, which was not to be in a rush to do this.
Yeah.
One of the things that strikes me is we are the only one, we would be the only one that has this in Lee County. You know, we're in favor of the right development in the right way, and I'm comfortable that we can do that with a majority vote on this council. But that's one person's opinion.
Yeah. I'm looking at other
Fred?
councils down the road.
Okay.
Yeah, but they can change it.
Yeah, but there's another thing that can be done if we like it, so, but whatever.
Mike?
Yeah, I could kind of go either way. If we do go with the the supermajority, I would say if we put it in instead of the sunsetting, make it a 5 vote to take it out, would be my recommendation.
Steve?
I'm okay with leaving it the way it is.
Greg?
I agree with Peter. I agree. We can change, just look at the capital improvement. I mean, from last year to this year, we changed it at a stroke of a pen. So anything can be changed at a stroke of a pen. I agree, just leave it the way it is.
And I'm in favor of the 6-month sea leg, Fred, and
Okay.
let's continue to talk through
All
this.
That's the middle
So,
ground.
so guess what you're going to get? 3.5 to 3.5 on that. How's that?
That sounds like a tie.
Yeah.
Well,
We
perhaps,
violently agreed to have a tie.
perhaps
3.5 to
council is not
3.5, Fred.
ready,
That's
but
all you get
Right.
today.
there is a message from the examples that were given here. Because I think, like, for example, the city of Cocoa Beach was sending a message that this town strongly agreed to have their town have a certain character. And I do think that our town has done that in a different way through our comprehensive plan for 15 years. So perhaps this council is not ready to strongly say, we are committed to a lighter height restriction, or having a height restriction being maintained at 75 feet, which has been our policy for 15 years. And what I have some concern about is that could be changed by even 4 people, when that's been in place for 15 years. So maybe this council is not ready to make that strong statement. I obviously am.
Right.
But maybe you need 6 months to think about it, but I don't know.
Audrey?
If I may, the cities of Cocoa Beach, Ponce Inlet, and Anna Maria Island, if you'll notice, all of it originated from their charter. And I'm going to take a wild guess here, but that it came as a petition initiative. It came from the people wanting to restrict the decision-making of the local government. It wasn't from the council themselves. No matter what happened, whether it was a petition initiative or even if the council brought it as an ordinance item forward, it had to be approved by the voters. And that's a big difference in just
Yes.
doing an ordinance, which is approved by
Let-
you.
Yes, it
let
is.
me-
Fred?
Let me make one last point. It was the people that made me so keenly aware that they're tired of seeing things proposed in comp plan amendments and all that, and they would feel a lot more comfortable seeing this. And I would go further in saying, that if this got into a proposed charter amendment, it would overwhelmingly pass because the people want it. Now, but I think that the two Peters idea of slowing it down for 6 months is fine, but I think what's the harm of letting Audrey at least start developing a draft that we could look at it? Maybe one of the interns could work on it.
Not intern level.
Peter, did you?
Well, I mean, that's up to Audrey. We can't dictate her, well, I guess.
Yeah, you can.
We can. Well, let me put it this way. I'd rather Audrey spend a lot of time on a new sewer rule, septic rule, than.
Or acquiring the land for the corridors or whatever, that.
Right.
That's
There you go.
Okay, council, what do we want or need to do further here?
I
Just
propose waiting 6 months and then
Yeah, well,
talking about.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion and a second for waiting 6 months?
So I'm writing revisit the issue in 6 months with council.
Yeah.
Okay.
Supposed to-
Further discussion? Roll call.
Councilwoman Carumba,
No.
Councilman DeWitt,
Aye.
Councilman Slackton.
Aye.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn,
Aye.
Councilman Gibson,
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Yeah, I'll go along with the crowd.
You want to say
Aye.
present? You want to say present?
I'll say present. No, not present.
Not present.
This is your idea and Amy's out there.
Hey, I did that before on the
This is
trust
what's
me.
wrong with
Vote
not
against
being
my
able
own
to
stuff.
talk to each other, but I still stick to my no vote. I'm not changing it.
Liberating, isn't it, Fred, to vote against your own idea?
Well, it is, yes.
I've done
happened
it.
to you, though.
I've done it.
But
No, I get
I
it.
have to say that I agree with Fred that this is my message that I've gotten from so many people that I talk to, that they are concerned about council reversing a long-standing policy, and particularly height, not so much density, but pretty much height is a concern.
Great. Thank you, Amy. Anything further? Okay. Item C, Audrey.
Thank you. This is making sure I have clarification and understand what was requested at the last council meeting. We have several complex land use matters that are coming before council. When I say imminent, it could be 6 months, it could be 3 months, I don't know. I mean, it's in the review process. I did my usual, hey, it must be involved with litigation, and then Councilmember Forbes pointed out to me, no, and then revisit the idea. So I wanted to make sure I scoped out with council what my duties are, and then if you wanted me to discuss it further with, I believe, Councilmember O'Flynn, the duties would be, and this would be, there's several cases, and I think they're complicated because they had annexations involved with them. And so we're also reviewing them using Lee County's code, which, so the attorney would assist the planners involved, as well as council when we got to that level, with looking at first at the annexation agreements, determine parameters, whether or not certain items in those annexation agreements may be void against public policy, and that there is no obligation. I mean, there are different things and different viewpoints that might be taken. Review the zoning application submitted to community development to provide guidance to the community development department during this. Now, I would still be available and assisting, for the normal mundane questions, but if it was something procedural that could affect how we hold the hearing, I think that's very important. Hold private briefings with council. Now, this would be ex parte communication, like any communication you get on any zoning hearings about the case that goes through zoning, to make sure council's fully informed of the decision-making based on the record before the zoning board, the record that before council, the Florida law, and city land development code provisions, and possibly county land development code provisions, and be able to litigate. So I would still want a full-service firm in case we get challenged. Now, when you retain outside counsel, there's several things you look at. You look at first availability. Are they able to handle the case? Do they have the ability to do so, as well as do they have the time to do so, as well as whether or not they have any legal conflicts. Some of the potential cases could be situations where they have partners in other portions of the state of Florida that have handled something for one of the entities, and that firm would be disqualified. So The list would probably start off bigger and then end up smaller. I have not made a list yet. I'm close to one, but I would want to do that in consultation, if you want, with Councilmember O'Flynn. And then I would want maybe not Councilmember O'Flynn, and I can see that head. And that's okay, because what I would do is I would bring the folks back to you. We could either do it as a presentation, but I would want council to do the ultimate
Let me just,
selection.
I would prefer you do it with Councilmember Forbes.
Or
Continue,
Councilmember
yeah.
Forbes, okay.
I had a comment or two.
Yeah,
just,
go ahead, Pete.
So I think this is excellent what you've laid out here.
Okay.
But when you were reciting about number 2, you talked about procedural, how we hold a hearing, and I think that could be part of it, but I think it's more than that. It's the substance of it as well. Not to your exclusion.
Right,
but
absolutely.
It's the substance of it as well, tying in with number 1. The only other point I'd have is there are, and we've seen this here on all sides of it, there are very good zoning, I'm going to call it zoning, land use lawyers who don't necessarily themselves litigate.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, it may be possible that at some point in the future we get into some litigation, hopefully not. But from my perspective, I wouldn't necessarily tie that in here.
And the way I would tie it in is generally you would hire the firm. The firm would have one person handling it at the administrative level before council, going through this process. And then if we receive the writ of certiorari or any other type of suit, you would then have the litigators, the
Yeah,
trial
and my
people.
concern with that is I don't want to necessarily build in that whoever we hire is necessarily going
That
to do
we're
the
precluding.
litigation. I mean, for example, we had on the homeless, what's her name, Beverly Grady, was an excellent, I
Right.
thought, litigate, well,
She's not a litigant.
she's not a
actually.
litigator actually, but whoever handled the litigation.
It was Chris Donovan,
Was a
yeah.
different person, you know.
Correct.
So I just prefer to take it as 1, 2, and 3, and hopefully that'll never get us to litigation.
That would make me a happier camper
Okay.
also. Okay, now, I will need, let me just go into the money part of this, which is, I keep a very low amount in my budget per year for outside counsel. And I do that on purpose because I don't particularly want lawyers wanting to grab me for budget type issues. I have spent already past my $25,000, so I needed to get a budget amendment for this year, plus I would need an amendment to kickstart the hiring or retaining this, lawyer or lawyers involved or firm involved to do this. So I will be coming back to you with a budget resolution, of probably $25,000 prior to selection. And there is a chance that it might be increased before the budget year, but we'll also work that into our budget this year. So much for zero base on my part.
Hey,
Fred?
Two quick comments. One, I think when Audrey and I talked, I did say that once we had this, so to speak, expert outside legal independent counsel, that it would be set up in such a way that each and every one of us that would like to meet with Audrey and that counsel could raise their concerns that they're concerned about, whatever these two situations are. Because each one of us may have a different thing we are concerned about, and that way you would be able to do that and not disclose to the other side, so to speak, what you're looking at. And the other thing, I think I heard it, but I want to make sure, ideally, I think it'd be better if they were from the East Coast or farther away, a little farther away than just in Lee, Collier, and that general area that we tend to work out of.
Yeah, I don't think you can say East Coast per se, but.
No, but
You
farther
have a-
away is better than closer away.
The only thing that worries me about that is travel cost.
Yeah.
You get them to come here for, 2 or 3 meetings or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna
Right.
eat up that money in
Yeah.
travel costs. 'Cause
So
I'm
we
sure
don't-
How about
they're not-
Sarasota, Fred? They got any good attorneys
Yeah,
up
that,
there?
but we don't want somebody that's part of the inside baseball game around here.
Right, right.
Do you have a suggestion on an attorney? or-
No.
I have. Audrey, do you want any suggestions today? If we have them, it says
If you have them, you can either give it to me or I can tell you.
specifically warmly welcomed. You have here.
Huh?
You said suggestions are warmly welcomed, so I.
Absolutely.
All right. So, actually, this fits with Fred's East Coast and knowledge of all law, I think. In Estero, they have a person by the name of Nancy Stroud.
I'm familiar with Nancy.
Yeah, and I've been to a few meetings. She seems to be doing an excellent job
Right,
for
but
them.
you don't think she would have a conflict on something that borders Estero and
I don't think
Bonita
it's
Springs?
necessarily a conflict. I think that's something to look into. Because, I mean, what we're talking about here are land use matters. If there's a conflict, there's a conflict. But,
I certainly,
Yeah.
I enjoy, I've
Yeah.
worked with Nancy Stroud on a Captiva erosion issue. I mean, I've known her for about 25 years.
oh,
so
okay, all
Not a
right.
problem.
And they say I've just heard the people in Estero speaking well of her. So I would put her near the top of the list. If there's a conflict, there's a conflict.
Council, anything else?
There also may be the possibility of, with respect to looking at things and just giving legal advice as to annexation agreements, if they're looking at it and we're looking at it, actually reducing our costs if you had one attorney looking at things. Possibility.
Yes,
Possibility.
it's also a possibility we have an attorney working against us on our nickel, so,
Well, if she's working against us, that's a different matter. I haven't heard that she is.
right.
I haven't. I don't know if
Right.
you have.
No, and it
Yeah.
depends on her other client too. I
Right.
mean, for waivers, we would have to go through the extensive process. on
Okay.
that.
So there could be some economies of scale on that,
Mm.
subject to what you say. Anyhow, that's my suggestion.
Can we move the issue?
Steve?
Can we move the issue?
Do you want to make a motion?
Let me just
I don't know,
ask
do
one
we-
more question. Would council be adverse because one of the parcels is Bonita Grand Extension, which probably would not be in the contentious area? Would you be adverse to potentially two different sets of attorneys?
You're talking about, no, I would have the same person
Okay.
do it.
Okay, I didn't know if it would make any sense to have two different firms. You have one dealing with the one area and the other.
I think there are
okay.
economies to one.
All right.
Yeah.
Especially travel.
Yep,
Yeah.
just one. Do we need a motion on this?
I don't think so. I think I have the parameters. I
Yeah.
got the scoping I needed, so I thank you, council.
Great. Thank you, Audrey. City Manager's Report. Carl?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off is the review of the monthly financial reports, which have been submitted for your review. Any questions? Okay, moving on. Number 2, identifying projects within the CIP. So I submitted to you, and actually after your workshop concluded today, went back to her office and produced another list, but of CIP projects, and we believe this is what the council came up with. So you know, we're looking at $4.6 million that you've identified in the CIP projects. That can be on hold. When you take the additional 60,000, you're almost at $4.7 million. The $60,000 that's not going to be used for the skate park in this budget year as well. So we'd like you to adopt this list if you feel comfortable with that. And that way, that's official action, and we can move forward from there.
I'll make a motion, we adopt this list.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilman DeWitt?
Aye.
Councilman Slackton?
Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Aye.
Okay, and the third item is the budget resolution to fund the Riverside Park dock replacements, and I'd like Ann to chat about that a little bit.
This addresses the issue that I think Nicole briefed you on previously about the dock replacement, and so it would provide some funding for that. The initial repair was actually budgeted within the general fund, and we have already incurred some engineering costs regarding this. So the total cost to actually move the project into the CIP, which is where it belongs now with its total cost at this amount, is $82,275. So this budget request is requesting to use funding, and the resolution is showing it reducing the budget of the fitness room expansion and adding a project for Riverside Park dock replacement. That's within the resolution itself.
We recommend your approval.
I make a motion, we go ahead and approve it, especially since the permit expires in July.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Good question.
Fred?
What's the capacity of this dock or boat area? What was it and what will it be?
Currently, the dock is just designed for fishing and boats. What we're proposing is to reconfigure it for what it's actually being used for now, which is for canoe, kayaks, and paddle boards. Right now, they're just trying to use a boat dock to launch canoe, kayaks, and paddle boards. So the capacity-wise, I mean, that can be thousands of people launching. Currently, CGG Kayaks, our concessionaire, had 639 separate people utilizing in just the first 3 months of this year, and that's utilizing it as not as a boat dock. It's not really purposed for a canoe, kayak, and paddleboard launch. So this is a safety issue, which actually will help and be an actual launching dock, and it is ADA.
Well, just my quick 2 cents, I'm totally for this. I was down there last night, obviously it needs work. I just hope, this should be a centerpiece of what we're doing down there. And hopefully it's gonna look great, this separate launching platform, and get some attention for that.
It is actually, we've designed it on one that's already at Fort Myers Beach.
Okay.
It's very similar to the one that they put in there. It is a wooden dock still, but it is a floating dock, so
Right.
it's a little different. We didn't, put any sort of fancy design standards in it because that would increase the costs exponentially, but we did make it designed mainly for safety.
Okay.
But it still would be a wooden dock.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilman Slackton.
Aye.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba.
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt.
Aye.
Okay,
And Mr.
moving along. Yeah,
I
Carl.
have one more
Yes,
item.
please.
I'm sorry.
Have at it,
wanna-
Carl. Don't
I
be
just want
sorry.
to get on the record here a little bit. This is the second council meeting in a row where Parks Department has been blamed for not taking care of their properties. And I will just tell you that I take exception to that. The decision around the community hall in particular was one that rests on my shoulders, not on the director's shoulders, because there was a number of things going on. It was an old building, but just because it's an old building does not mean it's been designated historic. And when it looked like the vision of the community hall property might change, and the issues we had with an old building, which is we had continuing and worsening roof issues, so it was leaking. We had asbestos in the building, and it was not Americans with Disabilities Act compliant. We were going to be looking at significant investments of public dollars in order to make sure that that building was appropriate for ongoing public use. Given the change in the vision, the decision was made, the recommendation was made, council funded, that we would actually demolish that building. So I want to put to rest any thoughts that somehow the staff or the director or the city is methodically reducing historic structures in the city, because we are not. We would not have spent a significant amount of my time here in office, and I'm coming up on 5 years, working on trying to resolve the water tower issue if we weren't concerned about our history. We think it's very important. So I just wanted to make it clear that when the thought first came up that we might demolish the community hall, I asked specifically, do we have historic structure issues with this building? And the answer was no. And that gave us clearance to think about demolition if that was going to be the most appropriate approach to that. So I would just hope that, but I take responsibility for all of that. The buck stops with the city manager, not necessarily with the director all the time. Thank you.
Carl, at the previous council, I remember going through this, and what you just said, I remember distinctly, and we all were in favor, hey, we're not going to spend that kind of money fixing that place. So, I agree.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Carl, very much. Anything? Do you have anything? No? Okay, just checking. Okay, dynamite. Okay. Mayor and council member reports. I guess we'll start here with item A, a resolution appointing a member to the City of Bonita Springs Local Planning Agency. And we have ballots, but can we review the names for discussion?
They're all set out in the green sheet and they're on the ballots if you, either way you'd like to.
Sure, yeah, I'd like to have the ballots, please, if we could.
Do we have
Thank you.
ballots? Oh, we're getting ballots. Oh, okay. Just choose one. Okay.
Are we going to discuss it at all before we vote?
You can.
Yeah, well, as we're passing out the ballots, Fred, do you have something you'd like to discuss?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Or
number one, it is a vacancy created by me no longer being on LPA, I believe, right? Number two, there are at least two people from District 6, I believe, that submitted. Meg Jacobson in particular went to lots of meetings, made public comments and all that, so that's my comment.
Shane, we can't get one more from District 4?
Yes, right.
If you're playing poker, that'd be
Then we'd be
interesting.
running the city.
And interestingly enough, I don't see any options on there for District 4 this time, Peter.
We're voting for one.
Voting for one. Any further, anybody else? Anything? Okay.
Oh, I got to put mine.
Do you want, either way, there's two ways to vote. One is where, and make sure your name is on the ballot. So names have to be on there because we're not allowed to have secret ballots. And then the second thing is, I guess you're gonna pick them up. So you're voting for one name, and if we get a tie or something, we'll have to have a runoff and
Right.
another.
Deb's counting already.
Do we have a tie? You need help, or are you good?
Winner is.
We have Meg Jacobson with 5 votes and Alan Glazier with 2.
Okay.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
You need a motion?
I was gonna say, yeah, we do need a motion to accept.
To approve a resolution to appoint the member?
Yes.
The member being Meg Jacobson.
Fred, you want to make the
I'll
motion?
make the motion.
Second.
Okay. Been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Simmons,
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba.
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt.
Aye.
Councilman Slackton.
Aye.
Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, let's go around the horn. Amy Carumba, let's start with you, please. Our esteemed councilwoman from District 1.
District 1, all right. I have a couple of things to say, so I'll try to say it quickly. First of all, Arlene Hunter and I attended, we've been doing a lot of EDC, and we started out by going to the Horizon Council meeting, and as all you know, it's the Lee County EDC group. And we met one-on-one previously to that with B. Pat O'Rourke, and he helped me to get my feet wet with this EDC business, and I appreciate all the time that he spent with us. And one of the things that came out of the meeting, which is interesting because how it dovetails with what Bonita Springs is doing, is that they're refocusing on small business recruitment, expansion, and retention. And that's just what we're doing here in Bonita Springs. And following that meeting, I also attended the Bonita Estero EDC, and Arlene did arrange for a meeting with me, with Christine Ross, and also John Kosak, who's the head of that. And so that was very illuminating to find out what has been done and what continues to be done with that group. And it was very positive. But I have to compliment Arlene Hunter, who made a presentation to that meeting where she reviewed the things that we were doing from a strategic point of view, which I think really dovetail with the notion that, with the concept that if you build them, they will come, that all the emphasis we have on the quality of life issues, and she was very good about presenting it to that group, and I compliment her on that. And I think that we can continue to feel comfortable that if we focus on this vision that we've articulated and execute some of the things that we've been doing, that these companies, both the ones we have, which we absolutely want to retain, help them to expand, that we will be successful there. So I felt very good about doing that. My second topic is transparency, and again, I have to pat ourselves on the back for the first step that we've taken here. But I've been meeting with Laura Taylor because I am committed to doing outreach, at least to my district, and we are trying to develop various alternatives for how I could do that. And one of the things is we are going to be communicating with as many neighborhoods as we can within District 1, just introducing myself and offering mechanisms by which they can reach out to me and I can reach out to them. One of the things we're going to do electronic contacts first. I also have 2 homeowners associations where I'll be attending in the next week or so, so it's going to be personal kinds of things also. And we might possibly do online chats. I'm not quite sure how that would work, but that was a suggestion she had. So I'll keep you posted in case you want to do some of these things with your district. One of the most difficult things that we're finding is to get the right contact in each of these neighborhoods. It sounds like it's an easy thing to do, but it's not that easy, so we'll continue to do that. And I just wanted to share what some of my constituents are concerned about. I'm getting a lot of questions about annexation agreements, what's happening with Weeks Fish Camp, what's happening in Raptor Bay. We've had some inquiries about what our noise ordinance was, and Audrey helped me with that. And I think that sort of sums it up. You know, they also were concerned about the jurisdictional concerns along Coconut Road. So those are the 3 items that I've been hearing from different people, and we probably will hear them in the future. That's my report.
Great, thank you. Fred?
One of the public comments was all about Bonita Grande Road, and the people from that country club should be aware that yesterday Carl and I met with the president of the club and the chairman of that external affairs committee, and there was a lot of discussion about Bonita Grande Road and the traffic problems and all that. And the sheriff's department was well represented, and they're going to look into all that stuff. So that another point, and this is just minor, but we will be trying to have meetings with BSU to talk about sewers and all that out in the DRGR. Lastly, I think that everybody in the audience, the viewing audience, should be aware that there isn't one member on City Council that doesn't want the high school in Bonita Springs and as quickly as possible. Secondly, on that site, it's not just as simple as some of the people in the viewing audience may think, because at this point there is no longer a contract between that seller and the school board. So in effect, you have to get back to that site. You have to have an agreement with 2 parties. Even if the school board would want to go back to it, the seller's got to agree. But I do know that the city council, and I know the staff, will do anything that they can to help the school board facilitate getting a site that's workable in Bonita Springs. So that's the end of my statement.
Great, thank you, Fred. Greg?
The only thing I have is just to remind council and staff that on the 25th, a week from today, we're dedicating our fire tower to the late Paul Phillips. So staff and council are invited to that. It starts at 9:30. 9:30 out there. So please attend if you can. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Mike? Good. Mike's good. Steve?
Going back to Amy talking about the Economic Development Council, I was just wondering with the departure of Christine, by any chance, is that adding more work to Arlene with her involvement with the chamber?
We'll continue our relationship with the EDC and the chamber. We did hear from the president of the chamber, Bob Rozier. He came into the EDC meeting, and he spoke to the EDC board of directors that John Kozak and himself and a few other members are on a selection committee now, and that Christine has given them adequate time to fill the position, about 60 days. So they'll be working through the selection committee process to make that final determination on the new hire, and we'll continue to collaborate with them and assist any way we can.
So it's status quo for you, then? It's not great. The second thing is on May 30th at 9 o'clock, Memorial Day services at the Riverside Park. We'd love to have you all attend. And our Adam Prentke, you know, the commander at Post 303, has got something very different this year that he's going to be doing at the ceremony. So hopefully you'll all come and enjoy it.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Pete?
Just another word or two on the school. As you know, there were other sites in Bonita that, for some of us who were not on city council at the time, including Fred, we were talking to the school board about. So I would hope that people reinvigorate those discussions with the school board, particularly with Carl and the school board. The other thing just to add is, from watching the school board meeting last night, what Superintendent Atkins actually said about that site was that the DEP had come in and was supportive of the findings as it relates to not having an asbestos problem there. I thought that was significant. And he also said that it does not mean that that site is all the way off the table. Those were the words he used. So just to put that in context. Two other things. As part of my liaison job, I met with the Blue Zones group last week, and I must tell you it's a really good initiative, particularly because it's not something that they're requiring or trying to require people to do, in spite of some of what you may have read in some places, as much as it's an encouragement of voluntary action. And a lot of it indeed is similar to what was presented today for Healthy Lee. There is also a very strong emphasis in the Blue Zones about everything we're doing with respect to bikeable, walkable, intermodal transportation. So I think, you know, between the two organizations, we could have some additional support. Last thing, after listening to Kathy talk about how she got that WCIND thing, I would, Carl, suggest that you send Kathy to negotiate the local gas tax with the county.
Great. All done, Pete? Yeah. All set? Okay. I'm going to read a couple of things here. Just we've touched base on it, but for those that may or may not know, or in the viewing audience, or unclear, as a point of reference, the Lee County Superintendent has indicated that they wanted to build a high school in Bonita Springs, and it's still the dream that they would like to chase. But if we're not able to do that, then we have to build to capacity and hope to do that you can have students in seats for the 2018-2019 year, said Superintendent Atkins. As for the terminated contract, the superintendent says it's worth taking the extra time to make sure everything is in place to make the multi-million-dollar investment to build a new high school. And then I'd like to read into the record the following statement. Our city and our students have been in need of a high school for a number of years, and that need has not changed. The school board will continue to work to find the best solution for the students in our community. The Lee County Superintendent has recently indicated that they wanted to build a high school in Bonita Springs, and it is still the dream that they would like to chase. I'm here to chase that dream right along with them and continue to work with our residents and the school board on this journey, and ultimately bring the high school to Bonita Springs, as I know all of us in City Council are. So with that, thank you. Those are my only comments. Now, approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve in a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba.
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt.
Aye.
Councilman Slackton.
Aye.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye. Okay, public comment. Anybody from the public wishing to
Yeah,
make
Rick
a...
Steinmeier, I think we have a very responsible and mayor and council sitting. I'm very confident you'll do the right things for Bonita.
Great, thank you, Rick. Hello, Kathy.
Hello, Kathy McGrath, just a few final comments. I just want to clarify something I said earlier because I don't want it to be misinterpreted. When I was talking about Parks and Recreation, and I was disappointed when I have heard criticism of Parks and Recreation for what they perceived to be decisions that were made, and they were talking about the community hall and the water tower. And what I was trying to do was back Nicole, and maybe it came out wrong, because when I said usually when you criticize an entity like Parks and Rec, it falls on the shoulders of her. So that's why I said it that way. I was not criticizing her at all because I'm behind Nicole 100%. I've seen all her presentations on the water tower, and I know what's going on. So I just wanted to clear that up. And the only other thing I want on the record is I keep hearing this reference to the flyover study. And it's my understanding that the MPO had funds available for Bonita Springs, and we were part of them, to conduct a traffic study at the intersection of US 41 and Bonita Beach Road. And there were several council members at the time who were in favor of accepting this money for the study. But when the word suddenly got out that one of the solutions could be a flyover, it developed a life of its own and mushroomed out of control. And all of a sudden it became the flyover study, which I don't think is correct. And I was here when Debbie Tower, FDOT, made the presentation. And let me go on record saying I was never, ever in favor of a flyover there. I just was in favor of having the study, accepting the study. And she said at that meeting, and most of you will remember, that when we do these studies, if a solution comes up that is not acceptable to the people, we won't do it. Well, of course, I believe that, Uncle's going to do what he wants to do. But anyway, I just wanted to clarify that. I was never in favor of the flyover, but I just wish you would stop saying flyover study, because it was supposed to be a possible study of the intersection. And I talked to the gentleman who did the wonderful presentation, and what I saw today was so much better than what the rumors I've been hearing. I'm completely in favor of the roundabouts. Like people from Europe, they say we're 40 years behind times. They work. We can make them work, and they are going to work, and they aren't traffic circles. So let's think positive. And thanks for letting me clarify that.
Thank you. Hello.
Morning, Council. Alan Glazier, District 1, Bonita Springs. Kathy, I want to tell her I appreciate her clarification, and that's the way I heard it too. So anyways, it's all good. One thing about that I did want to mention is that one of my main concerns is maintenance, and that we take care of what we have, and the idea that okay, I understand that it hadn't been maintained, and what do we do about it? And maybe that's totally it, but the thing is, what do we do now? What do we have there? Like I mentioned last time, and I'm not the only one who's mentioned this. Actually, Byron Lyles mentioned to me when he came back from the service in 1960, when this happened the first time, when the pavilion got knocked down, the predecessor to the community hall, is he felt basically about the way I did, and the thing is, because all his memories, but get beyond that, and I appreciate what Carl said, is what my point is, what are we going to do for Bonita? I don't want to just see something downtown that loses the old Florida, old Bonita feeling and like that. What do we have there that we can have activities and so forth and like that? Or what are we going to do for that? So we need to move forward to get something there for that, not just some big monument building there that, because that to me is not Bonita. and I'd like to see something done about that. One positive thing I would like to mention, on my way here, I happened to see the curbs at Pennsylvania and the roundabout, and looks fantastic. So I did hear you all mention earlier about that getting done and like that, so I think that's going to be a beautiful thing and like that. And I appreciate hopefully the reprieve. I hadn't heard anything. I missed part of the meeting, so I hadn't heard anything except what Kathy mentioned about the water tower. But my only problem is I don't really like the way it was handled. I'd like to think that we could have went ahead without some last-minute thing and having to call around and like that. It seemed like it could have been done at the last meeting. And hopefully we will get a real reprieve for this structure, because it is historic, and it'd be nice to have it something. A lot of people talked about different places that have let theirs go. Naples has let theirs go, other places and like that. We have a chance here to actually preserve an historic structure, and it's not much compared to what we've lost. So at least get this one little thing. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Representative Hudson, hello.
Mayor, for the record, Matt Hudson, State Representative. Mayor, you introduced me earlier, and I thought people might wonder what in the heck he's doing here, since I don't represent this area. But being kind of a government junkie, and also one that truly believes in our republic, I've always found that attending city council meetings and commission meetings is a very insightful way of truly understanding the community and the people that have been in charge to represent it. I think if you were to ask Mayor Rowland in Clewiston, or Mayor Lyons in Hendry County, in LaBelle, my mode of doing things, don't be surprised if suddenly you go, wow, Hudson's sitting in the back of the room. Holy cow, what's he doing here? No, I'm not here to bring a bad message or anything like that. I just find that it's incredibly instructive as to what's going on in the community and what are the issues bubbling up from each of your respective districts. And that's just how I like to go about the process of learning and ultimately, hopefully, representing people. So thank you for your time.
Wonderful.
Thank you for the introduction.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here today. Anybody else from the public? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right. We're adjourned. Yes.